Chapter 496. Hearing the receptionist's question, Lu Cheng's mind spun quickly. He smiled and nodded. I'm thinking about it. Can I go in and take a look? He wasn't proficient enough in speaking and could only express his thoughts in a concise manner. If the so-called Dragon Fist was unique and different from others, and the martial arts masters were strong, he wouldn't mind paying to spend a few days here. He could also complete a private spar and not ruin the reputation of the martial arts masters. Of course, I'll get someone to lead you in and introduce you, the receptionist replied with a smile, as though she had seen a business deal about to be done. She picked up the phone and spoke a few words. Soon, a skinny young man came out of the martial arts hall and greeted him warmly. Chinese? Yes, Lu Cheng answered frankly. The young man in front of him didn't have a lot of qi and blood. He could barely see the muscles on his arms. Just arrived in Connecticut, right? The skinny young man sized Lu Cheng up and said with a smile, the weather here is changeable, so you have to be careful. I forgot to mention, I'm Li Zuanping, a student and handyman in the martial arts hall. Let's talk inside. You can take a look around. Sure. Lu Cheng followed Li Zuanping into the hall with great interest. He toured the training ground on the first floor and the strength and equipment room on the second floor. He found that the layout here was similar to that in China, except that most of the students were foreigners. Looking at the men and women with white, black, or brown skin practicing the horse stance and punching, it was a fascinating feeling. What do you think? We are a very orthodox martial arts hall from China. The strength of our instructors is also very strong. A few of them have won the Connecticut Unlimited Fighting Championship. Li Zuanping did his best to introduce the place. Have you practiced martial arts before? If you are a beginner, we have corresponding courses and special training plans. Listening to the other party's long-winded speech and glancing at the ordinary punching and kicking practice, Lu Cheng restrained his waning interest and replied with a smile, let me think about it. Do you have any promotional materials? Can you give me a copy to take home for a closer look? Although the instructors here were able to make a sound with their punches and kicks, and from time to time, they would be able to break wooden planks and break bricks. The cracking sounds made the foreigners admire them, and they felt that the mysterious Chinese kung fu was indeed powerful. However, to them, it was really boring. The so-called Dragon Fist seemed to be an ordinary kung fu that had been modified to be closer to the local physique. However, there was a technique to rejecting. He couldn't just say that the martial arts hall was full of weaklings and that he didn't like them. Using, think about it, was an effective way to get away. Yes, I'll give you a copy later. Let me tell you, our Dragon Punch dojo has 10 years of history, and we have 5 or 6 branches in Connecticut. We're definitely not the kind that scams people's money. Our dojo owner is called Zhu Hong, and he went to Nanyang after he made some achievements in martial arts. He's not very famous in China, so it's normal that you haven't heard of him. 11 years ago, he migrated to Connecticut, and combined the martial arts and fighting techniques of 3 different places. He created the Dragon Punch. Li Zuanping smiled. The competition in the local martial arts field in Connecticut is very intense. The fact that we can survive for 10 years proves many things. It sounds like a legend. Lu Cheng's interest was aroused again. He asked with a smile, what about Master Zhu now? Maybe the characteristics of Dragon Fist can't be reflected in ordinary teaching practice. I can't be arrogant and blindly deny others. Master Zhu is a very busy person. He only oversees each branch for 1 day. And, the day after tomorrow, on Wednesday, he will come to our place. At that time, you can come and take a look and see the true Dragon Fist. Li Zuanping warmly invited. When the time comes, you'll definitely be eager to join us. All right. Lu Cheng smiled and nodded. Accompanied by Li Zuanping, he took the documents and left Dragon Fist Hall. He lowered his head and opened the Google map again to look for other fighting venues. In the outdoor cafe across the street, Smith sipped a bitter liquid. Sometimes he would look at the surveillance footage on the computer screen, and sometimes he would look up at the dangerous backpacker-like figure. Yes, a truly dangerous figure. Smith had read the information provided by Rainey in detail last night and had an unusually deep understanding of the target he was monitoring. That was a mobile high explosive. Rolling waves of fire, huge explosions, and wandering cold light all appeared in Smith's mind. He couldn't help but let out an "oh" and scold under his breath. Those idiots at the embassy whose brains are full of sh*t. Why did they give this guy a visa? Why didn't the boss just deport him? Knowing that he was just complaining, Smith touched his small earpiece and lowered his voice. He instructed a few members of his team to change their positions to avoid being detected by the target. After doing all this, he raised his head and sipped his coffee while looking at the target in a manner of admiring the scenery. At this moment, Lu Cheng looked around blankly and coincidentally made eye contact with him. Smith's body tensed up. He didn't look away in a hurry and pretended that nothing was wrong. He nodded his head in a friendly manner and slowly looked to the side. His reaction was that of any normal American. Suddenly, he realized that Lu Cheng had moved. That dangerous figure was walking towards the zebra crossing. Taking advantage of the green light, he crossed the street and seemed to be closing in on him. Damn it. Smith quickly lowered his head and pretended to drink his coffee. He cursed in a panic. He couldn't have discovered something, right? Should I get up immediately and leave the scene or reveal my identity, explain the need to monitor him, and use legal terms to confuse him? While he was hesitating, a figure appeared in his line of sight. Lu Cheng stopped right in front of him. With a whoosh, Smith's back was covered in a layer of cold sweat. Smith, this is what every man who wants to be Spider-Man has to go through. Show me your courage. He muttered, raised his head, and calmly looked at the Chinese young man who was marked with the word dangerous in red. Sorry, can I bother you? I would like to ask for directions. Lu Cheng tried his best to make his smile amiable. Just now, when our eyes met, I decided to ask this fated person for directions. He looks pretty friendly. Smith almost raised his hand to dig his ears, suspecting that he had heard wrongly. He replied in a daze, no problem. I'm a martial arts enthusiast. Are there any famous martial arts training grounds around here? Lu Cheng organized his words and asked expectantly. With Google's map, he wasn't afraid of finding his way. However, after searching for a long time, he couldn't find his next destination because of his headache from reading English. He even complained to his wife about it. Smith grinned, unfolded the lines on his forehead, and answered with a dazed smile, Msasi Martial Arts Arena, at the 7th Street. It's one of the important bases of the Jaruga martial arts sect. Base, understand? Understood. Thank you. A name flashed across Lu Cheng's mind, and he quickly confirmed the route on the map. He waved his hand, bade farewell to the kind brown-haired man, and walked towards the 7th Street not far away. Smith waved back reflexively. When he was far away, he wiped his forehead. His hands were wet with cold sweat. He's just here to ask for directions? Smith muttered. Why is he looking for a martial arts arena? He said he's a martial arts enthusiast. As he muttered to himself, Smith's expression suddenly changed. He stood up abruptly and knocked over a chair. Through the device, he issued an order to his subordinates. Monitor the Msasi martial arts arena immediately. Mobilize the nets above, snares below. Gather manpower and be on the alert for danger level. A dangerous level martial artist from China heading to the Jaruga sect's martial arts arena was bound to give rise to bad thoughts. After more than 30 minutes, he finally saw the huge signboard of the Msasi martial arts arena. The logo of the Jaruga sect was printed on it, a fist holding a trident. Below the signboard were the words Msasi and Msasi. This is the place. It's much more luxurious than the Dragon Punch Dojo. Lu Cheng pushed open the door and entered happily. The receptionist at the front desk was a blonde, blue-eyed girl in a red dress with an explosive figure. She paused for a moment, then slowed down her pace and asked, "You're here to learn martial arts?" "Yes." "Can I take a look before making a decision?" Lu Cheng answered with familiarity. Of course you can. The blonde girl revealed a smile and reminded him in a friendly manner, many martial artists have a fiery temper. After you enter, you have to remember a few things. Don't stare at others practicing. If someone provokes you, pretend you didn't see or hear it. As for words of discrimination, please bear with it, okay? Okay. Lu Cheng nodded with a smile. After waiting for 2 minutes, a black youth with pigtails and dressed in a very hip-hop style walked out. When he opened his mouth, Lu Cheng suspected for a moment that he would say something like, yo yo yo. Oh, a shy Asian boy. The black youth laughed. I'm Brooke. Hello, Brooke. Lu Cheng didn't introduce himself and followed him into the saucy martial arts arena. They had just taken a few steps when they were greeted by a huge figure. It was a muscular black man who was obviously more than 2 meters tall. His arms were exaggerated and shiny, comparable to Lu Cheng's thighs. With a mocking smile, he glanced at Lu Cheng's thin and weak arms and flexed his terrifying biceps. Little boy, martial arts isn't suitable for you. After saying that, the bald giant didn't wait for a reply. He let out a carefree laugh and turned into another room. Don't mind him. Olsen was just joking. He's actually a very kind and humorous person. Brooke hurriedly explained to Lu Cheng, who was a little stunned. Compared to other martial artists. After watching Lu Cheng and Brooke enter, the blonde girl looked outside with nothing to do. Suddenly, she saw someone jumping between the tall buildings like a spider. Chapter 497. The blonde girl exclaimed in surprise. She hurriedly picked up her phone and tried to take a picture. However, when she aimed the screen at him, the figure leaping like a spider between the skyscrapers was already gone. I missed a superhero. Retracting her gaze, she expressed her regret on social media. Although everyone knew that superheroes from comics and movies were virtual characters and were exaggerations of reality, there were always fans who had evolved similar abilities to imitate and replicate them. According to incomplete statistics, there were more than 20 Spider-Men, who were publicly recognized and recorded by fans in America. Batman and Magneto were also not in the minority. After lamenting, the blonde girl suddenly fell into deep thought. The appearance of superheroes was often accompanied by danger. Was there something scary in the vicinity? For a moment, she was both anxious and curious. In the saucy martial arts arena, Lu Cheng smiled after hearing Brooke's explanation. Understood, understood. Faced with the ridicule and discrimination of the bald giant, Olsen, if it were him in the past, he would have been exceptionally angry and embarrassed. However, with his current strength and realm, he only found it funny and didn't feel insulted. Fighting isn't suitable for me? This joke is enough to keep me entertained for a week. Brooke nodded in satisfaction and led Lu Cheng deeper into the arena. They passed through corridors after corridors, passing by training grounds, and introduced the general knowledge of the Jaruga sect. The most influential martial arts school in the Omega Empire was the Mission School. However, the school with the longest history was the Nature School. They believed that everything had a spirit, and through that, they could gain power and transform themselves. The Jaruga school belonged to a major branch of the Nature School. They placed the spirituality of the human body in a more important position. Similarly, there were also different sects within the Jaruga sect. The Msasi sect focused on martial arts and, besides the spirituality of the human body, still emphasized on communicating with the spirits of all things. The other sect was closer to spirit cultivation and had almost developed into a cult. In order to awaken the spirituality of the human body, some of their rituals could even be classified as a cult. However, these were all Brooke's words. His stand was clear, and some of his words could only be taken as a passing remark. Lu Cheng didn't comment on this. Occasionally, he would respond with a yes, yes, yes. Most of the time, he was observing the layout, the coaches, and the students. Compared to the Dragon Fist Dojo, the Msasi fighting arena occupied a large area. The upper and lower floors were separated into training grounds and rooms. There were bare-handed fights, wrestling practice, weapons training, and even fitness classes for ordinary people. As he turned the corner of a room, he caught a glimpse of something that looked like an aquarium out of the corner of his eye. It was made up of huge glass partitions. Inside, the water rippled gently. The color was dark blue, and light shone in from different places. A bare-chested, muscular white man in leather shorts sank down from above. He held his breath and kicked continuously, breaking the underwater stone pillars into two. It's not bad to be able to do this underwater. Lu Qing didn't look any further. He continued forward, deep in thought. All right, this place is exclusively for fighters. As they walked, Brooke reached out and stopped him. He smiled and said, "Sorry." Lu Qing subconsciously looked over and found the place bathed in sunlight. A breeze blew in through the window. It was so quiet that his mind couldn't help but settle. However, it wasn't as if there was no one there. Vaguely, one could see a white man with bulging muscles. He was holding a large sword and silently practicing slashing. Every slash was shining like a star. Step, slash, resplendent, step, slash, resplendent. This boring and monotonous scene piqued Lu Cheng's interest in the Jaruga sect and the Msasi fighting arena. He turned his head and asked Brooke, "If I want to learn, what choice do I have?" To Lu Cheng, he wanted to experience different martial arts styles, but he didn't want to cause any trouble. This was because there was a high possibility that it would result in deportation and visa rejection. He wouldn't be able to fly to America to see his little fairy in the future. To him, that would be putting the cart before the horse. Wasn't the most important thing to come here for a couple's reunion? Furthermore, directly challenging the dojo didn't suit his character. It felt too arrogant, unreasonable, and could easily ruin the reputation of others. Therefore, Lu Cheng's plan had always been to pay some money and train with them to broaden his horizons. When the opportunity presented itself, he would spar with the strong and become a good young man with ideals, morals, culture, and discipline. All right, we have fitness, beginner, intermediate, and advanced classes. Which one do you want to enroll in? The latter classes require a corresponding fighting foundation, and they're very expensive. Brooke explained in detail as he led Lu Cheng back. What's the level of the advanced class? How much is the tuition fee? Lu Cheng asked without hesitation. Brooke was stunned for a moment. Looking at the black-haired man's thin arms and legs, he couldn't help but laugh. You? Advanced? Yes, I used to practice martial arts. Martial arts, understand? Lu Cheng waved his fist in a standard motion. Martial arts. Brooke muttered to himself. He was shocked, but his eyes were still filled with disbelief. To him, Chinese martial arts were a mystery. It could allow someone who didn't look strong enough to explode with terrifying strength, but could this Asian boy in front of him be someone who had learned martial arts? Let me think. Hey, Joe Weka, come here for a moment. You can spar with him. Put on your gloves. Brooke gestured to the half-naked muscular Caucasian man. He was practicing his footwork and punches. Joe Weka had a broad forehead and cold features. He looked shy and introverted, but upon closer inspection, one could see the violent and bloodthirsty desire hidden within him. Him? Brooke, stop joking. Joe Weka glanced at Lu Cheng, then glared at the black youth with braids. He wants to enroll in the advanced classes. Brooke shrugged helplessly. Advanced classes? Joe Weka seemed to have heard something funny. He shrugged his shoulders, laughing non-stop. When he was done, he turned around and put on his gloves. He looked at Lu Cheng and said, "Little boy, I'll let you know what an advanced class is. It's different from drinking milk in your mother's arms." Don't I need to use gloves? Lu Cheng asked casually. No need. Punch me with all your might. Joe Weka's eyes lit up as he answered excitedly. This is the first time I've heard such a request. Lu Cheng complained. He suddenly bent his legs, twisted his knees, swung his back, and sent a straight punch forward. Despite his complaints, he didn't use his full strength. He didn't even use the explosive power of the dance stage because it wasn't worth it. Bam! A crisp sound rang in Joe Waika's ears. Seeing his opponent's fist inches away, he hurriedly raised his arms and got into a boxing stance. In his mind, he was already imagining his counterattack. He was going to send this Asian boy crying and running back to his mother with a combination of punches. Bam! His gloves dented. Joe Waika's body swayed. He couldn't help but take a step back. 2 steps, 3 steps. Thump. He couldn't stand properly and fell to the ground. Is that good enough? Lu Cheng turned around and smiled at Brooke. Okay. Brooke replied blankly. Chinese Kung Fu is amazing. This skinny Asian boy can actually knock Joe Waika down with one punch. He's a rising star in boxing. How much is the tuition fee? Lu Cheng glanced at Joe Waika from the corner of his eye as he stood up shakily. It's fine if it's too expensive. I'll think of a way to broaden my horizons. From now until Christmas, $5,000. Brooke waved at the confused Joe Waika, indicating for him to return to the training ground. $5,000. That's a little expensive. Lu Cheng thought for a moment. Where do I pay? Follow me. Brooke was a man who had seen martial artists before. He quickly came back to his senses and led Lu Cheng in a different direction. He casually explained, our gym membership fee is $100 per month, not including personal trainers. The beginner class is $500, the intermediate class is $1,000, and the intermediate class is $2,000. Lu Cheng had specially applied for a dual-currency credit card in China for the convenience of seeing his wife. This was the perfect time to put it to use. After swiping the card, they signed an agreement. They agreed that they would be able to attend martial arts classes tomorrow for 4 hours a day. If they did well and performed well, they would be able to become an apprentice of the Saucy Martial Arts Gym, a true martial arts apprentice. During this process, Lu Cheng, who was dizzy from reading the agreement, even took a picture of Yen Jika. In the end, both parties were happy. Brooke sent Lu Cheng off with a bright smile and waved goodbye. See you tomorrow. Lu Cheng smiled and headed back to Connecticut University. At this time, Smith had just finished setting up the surveillance cameras to prevent any unexpected situations. He watched as Lu Cheng left the Saucy Martial Arts Gym. Left, damn it. What is he trying to do? Smith cursed. He used his Skynet access to check the Saucy Martial Arts Gym's internal network and some of the surveillance cameras. He signed up for a martial arts class. At this moment, Smith felt that the world was full of imagination. A dangerous level guy actually signed up for a martial arts class that wasn't even an apprentice. After a few seconds, he came to a realization. He remembered a few cases where Chinese martial artists had challenged the martial arts experts as soon as they entered the country. They had caused a lot of trouble and could only be sent back. This monster is trying to use other methods to achieve his goal. Smith nodded slightly. Should I remind them Saucy Martial Arts Gym? A question popped up in Smith's mind. He quickly found the answer. Why should I? He smiled and drew a cross in front of his chest. Chapter 498. After leaving the Saucy Martial Arts Gym, Lu Cheng decided to stop looking for similar places since he had already decided to start his classes the next day. Meals had to be eaten one bite at a time, and the martial arts schools had to be experienced one by one. He would be coming here once a month. Wouldn't it be boring if he wolfed down everything in one go in the future? He looked at the time, put his hands in his pockets, and returned to Connecticut University. When he passed by a street with more Chinese people, he happened to see a large supermarket. Lu Cheng took out his phone, took a picture, and sent it to Yen Jika with a smirk. Do you want me to buy some groceries? I think I ate all your stock last night. After he finished typing, he roughly read it and changed your home to our home with a smile on his face. Then, he clicked send. After a few minutes, Yen Jika smiled and said, why do I feel like you are a house husband? An inhuman expert as a house husband. This character setting is awesome, I'm giving him a thumbs up. Following that, she added, rolling her eyes, but I remember that we haven't gone grocery shopping together. Wait for me, I don't have class in the afternoon. Okay. Lu Qing replied with a silly smile. He switched to the map interface and reconfirmed the route. Then, he put away his phone and walked forward leisurely. After walking for a few minutes, the wind that passed through the street suddenly became stronger. The skies suddenly darkened, and the temperature dropped at a speed visible to the naked eye. Walala, as the wind reached its peak, the rain began to fall. Drip, 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 drip. The weather in Connecticut sure is changeable. Lu Qing, who didn't bring any rain gear, looked around for shelter. At this moment, he had an absolute reaction and noticed the raindrops falling. He flexed his muscles and moved his shoulders slightly. He immediately flung away the raindrops without staining his clothes. That's interesting. Lu Cheng's eyes lit up, as though he had found something fun. He quickly focused his mind and began visualizing. He formed an ice mirror in his heart and displayed the minute changes in various parts of his body. Compared to the past, his control after reaching the inhuman stage was so strong that it could be said to be abnormal. He felt as if his brain was like a supercomputer, instantly extracting the information collected from every part of his body and rapidly giving feedback, giving orders to each of them. His tendons bulged slightly and his veins pulled. Lu Qing kept flexing his muscles, shaking off the raindrops that fell on his body. From his shoulders to his arms, from his chest to his lower abdomen, from his thighs to his ankles. In the beginning, he was a little flustered. He cared about his brother, but lost his sister-in-law. He could care about his upper body, but he couldn't care about his lower body. He could care about his left, but he couldn't care about his right. As the rain fell, a few wet spots quickly appeared on the surface of his body, especially his head. Unless one was a physical invulnerability expert, one wouldn't dare to cultivate too deeply. Just by pulling on the skin and small muscles, one would definitely be slower by half a beat. Step by step, Lu Qing walked, leisurely, in the rain. He slowly grasped the rhythm and was no longer in a hurry. Everything was in order. It was as if he was immersed in a symphony, letting every part of his body play the role of different instruments, playing a beautiful melody in an orderly manner, intoxicating his soul. In the RV in the next block, Smith looked at the surveillance screen and shrugged. He said to his subordinate who was drinking coffee next to him in confusion. Is he a poet? Why is he so happy to be in the rain? I don't understand. What a strange Easterner. The black-haired, brown-eyed member of the Homeland Security Bureau shook his head. The rain in Connecticut came and went in a hurry. When Lu Qing strolled to the outdoor cafe, the dark clouds had already dispersed and the sun shone into the wind. Huff. He exhaled and wiped the dense cold sweat on his forehead. He felt both tired and refreshed. That experience just now was great. It was as though he had become a god who controlled his body. He had the confidence to reveal everything within. Is this how it feels to have a breakthrough in Ice Mirror? Encountering gods in the void, self-reflection? Ice Mirror was said to be the most difficult martial arts below physical invulnerability. It was the core control of many of the ice sex martial arts. Not only was it difficult to master, but it was also difficult to improve. After Lu Qing completed his transformation and entered the inhuman stage, he thought it would become stronger. Who knew that it wouldn't improve at all? But today, he had a breakthrough for no reason because of the rain. After arriving in America and meeting Ku, my body and mind are satisfied. My latent impatience is gone, my mind is stable, and I already have the foundation. Is that why I was able to gain something by chance? Lu Qing thought, surprised, delighted, and amused. Damn it. Why does it feel like I'm practicing dual cultivation? He couldn't help but complain. He examined himself again. The rain just now was rather heavy, and he had just made a breakthrough in his control of Ice Mirror. It was inevitable that he would have trouble controlling his body. There were many wet marks on his body, especially on his hair, which was sticking to his body. However, after walking in the rain for more than 10 minutes, most of his body was dry. It was still unbelievable. Shaking his clothes, Lu Qing raised his right hand and wiped his hair, wiping off patches of frost and ice crystals. He switched to his other hand and wiped his hair again. A little mist spread out, and his hair was completely dry. Not bad. Lu Qing showed the satisfaction of a full meal. He walked to the bar counter of the cafe and ordered a cup of cappuccino on a whim. He found a table and sat down. Sipping his coffee, he looked at his phone and searched for information on the Jaruga sect in English, leisurely waiting for Yen Jika to end her morning class. He had already taken a copy of the relevant information in Chinese from the Ice God sect, but it was still lacking. On the other side, in the RV, "Boss, look." The surveillance staff looked up in surprise and shouted to Smith. "What?" Smith put down his cutlery and looked over. His subordinate pointed at the screen and said, "Boss, he walked in the rain for 13.5 minutes, but only a small part of his clothes and pants were wet." Smith approached and carefully examined the playback. When he saw that Lu Qing had mistakenly dried his hair with the power of frost and flame, he suddenly understood and explained to himself, this should be some kind of application of his superpower. It's very detailed and wonderful. Write it in the report and add it to the data. Yes, boss. The staff cleared his doubts. At noon, Lu Qing met up with Yen Jika and Auntie Du. They found a famous old Chinese restaurant and filled their stomachs. After that, the couple left Auntie Du to pass the time and went to the supermarket hand in hand. They went straight to the food section and saw a dazzling array of vegetables, fruits, and all kinds of meat. "What do you want to eat?" "It's my treat." Yen Jika showed her dimples and smiled sweetly. Lu Qing was stunned for a moment and said in annoyance, "I forgot to look at the menu. I don't even know what to ask Auntie Du to cook tonight." "Just buy whatever you want." Cough, "I didn't think about this at all last night. Forgot to look at the menu." Yen Jika gritted her teeth and glared at him. Under the light, her cheeks became redder and redder. She snorted, "What else do you remember?" I'll look into it later. When I'm confident, I'll give Auntie Du a day off and we'll cook on our own." Lu Qing laughed embarrassedly, avoiding the important and dwelling on the trivial. The episode passed quickly. Yen Jika pulled Lu Qing and Lu Qing pushed the shopping cart and walked to the front of the meat section. The girl looked at it with interest. She picked up the food and put it in the car with interest. She muttered, "I'm not sure. This steak looks good. This cowboy rib is good too." Lu Qing listened in a daze, and then asked with admiration, "You're right. Ku, have you bought here before with Empress Dowager and Auntie Du?" Otherwise, how could she choose so quickly and confidently? Yen Jika looked up at him and answered matter-of-factly, "No, it's my first time today." "Then what are your standards?" Lu Qing blurted out in surprise. Yen Jika glanced at him with a look that said, "Are you stupid?" and said confidently, "Based on the price. Usually, the expensive ones are the best ones." "That makes sense." Lu Qing was speechless. After getting the affirmation, Yen Jika raised her head and put the meat she wanted into the cart. She added, "Look at them. They look better than the ones next to them. The texture is so beautiful." "I can't tell." Lu Qing didn't dare to refute. He followed the confident Ku around the food section and watched her pick up the food excitedly. Finally, they went back to the vegetable section to replenish their vitamins and plant fiber. "Qing, what is this?" Yen Jika pointed at a piece of green and asked curiously. Lu Qing stared at him and answered confidently, "I'm sorry. I don't know either. I don't even know the words." Yen Jika nodded in agreement. After that, they looked at each other and laughed inexplicably. After checking the words and knowing the scientific name, Yen Jika still didn't know what it was called. "Let's buy some and try it." With Lu Qing by her side, she was eager to try new things. Just like that, they bought 2 full carts and each pushed one to the checkout section. As they looked at each other, they suddenly had the subtle feeling of starting a family and living together. Their lips curled up. The couple lined up to pay. Although they bought a lot of food, it was not eye-catching because there were many people who bought a week's worth of food in one go here. Being good at using the freezer was a major feature of life in America. After paying the bill, Lu Qing easily picked up several large bags and followed Yan Zhika out of the restaurant. After passing by the two white students, they went out and waited for Aunt Du to drive over. One of the two white students turned around and looked at Lu Cheng's back with a puzzled expression. What happened? The tall, strong, freckled, brown-haired student asked his companion in confusion. Nothing. The blonde youth with thick arms and devil tattoos shook his head. He just felt that the Asian youth with the bags of food looked a little familiar. The freckled brown-haired student didn't dwell on the question and said, George, we can't become martial arts apprentices. Why don't we try out Chinese martial arts? You saw the King of Youth League. Peng and Lu are very good. Let me think about it. The blonde youth frowned in distress. Back at home, Yan Zhika started her homework, Lu Qing started his daily exercise, and Du Yan prepared dinner. By the time they finished eating, the sky was already dark. Yan Zhika went back to her room and turned on the lights, illuminating the room with a faint yellow glow. Just a little more and I'm done. This professor gives the most homework. The girl stretched and complained to Lu Qing. Then she buried herself in her homework. At this moment, she noticed Lu Qing bringing a chair over and sitting beside her. He turned on the table lamp to make the light brighter. Then he sat down silently with a book in his hand. He studied it seriously and accompanied her in silence. Qing, what are you reading? After a few minutes, Yan Zhika couldn't hide her curiosity and turned her head to ask. Lu Qing waved the book and smiled. Recipes. Pfft. Yan Zhika snorted and pursed her lips. She turned her head and looked to the side. The dimples on her cheeks deepened. She felt that the light in the room was very warm. Chapter 499. Before 8:00, Yan Zhika finished the rest of her homework. Stretching her arms, she turned to Lu Qing and asked with a smile, Hello, mister, do you want to eat cake? Looking at the girl's sparkling eyes and eager face, Lu Qing chuckled and answered firmly, Yes. Good. I'll make it for you and show you how good I am. Yan Zhika nodded with satisfaction. She stood up and pinned up her hair with a hairpin. Well, a minute's silence for the materials wasted last night. She went down the stairs to the kitchen and took out a few eggs. She beat them and separated them into a bowl of egg yolks and egg whites. Do you need help? Lu Qing followed behind her and volunteered. Yan Zhika rolled her eyes and handed the glass bowl with egg white to Lu Qing. Then help me beat it. Since Qing is so sincere, I won't use the egg beater. Okay. Lu Qing took out a pair of chopsticks and prepared to beat them at a high speed. But at this time, he was puzzled and hurriedly asked, What is considered to be evenly distributed? To what extent? I've never made a cake before. When I beat eggs for my mom, it was to make omelets. The requirements should be different, right? Yan Zhika pondered for a moment, blinked her eyes, and turned around in small steps. She opened a drawer in the kitchen and took out a book. After flipping through a few pages, she said, Beat until thick foam appears. That's it. Why does it feel so unreliable? Seeing this, Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. Noticing his gaze, Yan Zhika quickly raised her chin and emphasized seriously, You're right. I actually remember it. I flipped the book to make sure it's perfect. Got it. Lu Qing responded with a smile. His wrist joints moved at a high speed and the chopsticks made a clicking sound. Yan Zhika was in a daze. After a while, she sighed, Qing, you're really a human egg beater, this hand speed, this power control, TSK. Then she looked up and thought carefully for a few seconds. She asked Lu Qing to slow down a little. She took out an apron and started to process the egg yolks. When the foam appeared on Lu Cheng's side, she quickly weighed the sugar and put it in. Then she told him to speed up the mixing. During the whole process, Yenjika came and went, brushing against Lu Cheng's body and rubbing his hair. They looked at each other, full of warmth and joy. Finally, they finished everything. They put the materials into the mold, stuffed it into the oven, and set the time. While waiting, they leaned against each other and chatted about various topics. Occasionally, they would play affectionately. 30 seconds. Yenjika stared at the number on the screen with sparkling eyes. It must be delicious. Lu Cheng encouraged with anticipation. After they exchanged a few words, sounds could be heard. The cake was about to be baked. Okay. Yenjika turned around spotty. But when she turned around, she saw that Lu Cheng had already pulled open the oven door and took out the cake mold with his bare hands, just like how he usually took out bowls and chopsticks for a meal. SSSSS. What? Lu Cheng put the cake on the plate. A sweet aroma filled the air. Yenjika answered with a serious expression, "It's dangerous. Please don't imitate it." I'm wearing gloves. Lu Cheng put down the mold and raised his right hand. The surface was covered with white steam. Yenjika was speechless. She looked at the cake on the table, inhaled the aroma, and nodded seriously. "Cheng, I'm so jealous of you." "What are you jealous of?" Lu Cheng asked in surprise. "I'm jealous that you have such a good wife like me." Yenjika raised her arm and tried not to laugh. Lu Cheng laughed out loud for a while. "Yenjika is also a little amused by me." Yenjika passed the spoon to Lu Cheng and said timidly, "I want to try but I don't dare." "Cheng, try it and tell me how it tastes, okay?" Lu Cheng took a spoonful and chewed for a while. He was intoxicated and praised, "Not bad. The sweetness is just right." As he spoke, he extended his arm and put the spoon in front of his little fairy's mouth. "Really?" Yenjika's eyes were filled with joy. She leaned forward and took a small bite of the cake and tasted it carefully. After 10 seconds, she heaved a sigh of relief and said with a smile, Good, I didn't lose my standard. But the taste isn't as exaggerated as Cheng." "Well, I'm in a good mood today. I won't expose his exaggerated acting." Yenjika hurriedly urged him, "Hurry up and eat." "Cheng, let me tell you, the desserts in America are super sweet. It's like candy is free." "I don't particularly like the sweet kind." While chatting and laughing, the couple finished the cake. Of course, Lu Cheng took care of 4/5 of the cake. In the end, he felt a little embarrassed to have increased Aunt Du's workload, so he volunteered to clean up the mess and clean the table. Yenjika watched as Lu Cheng put on an apron and stood in front of the sink. He carefully washed the dishes and wiped them with a special cloth. She leaned against the kitchen door and her eyes gradually lit up. After a while, her dimples appeared. She leaned over and said confidently, "Cheng, I'm here to help you." Following which, sounds of laughter rang out in the kitchen. Lu Cheng's helpless voice could be heard from time to time. "You don't have to help. Why are you causing trouble?" In the cheerful atmosphere, the two finished cleaning up and returned to the second floor. They each took a shower and lay on the same bed. Yenjika seemed to have forgotten that the room she had arranged for Lu Cheng was next door. She asked with great interest, "Cheng, you said that your ice mirror has reached the realm of encountering gods in the void, self-reflection. What's the use of that?" "My sensing range has increased by at least 50%. My control of my body is so accurate that there's almost no error. If I suffer from internal injuries, the recovery time will be greatly reduced. Also, I can correspondingly stimulate my qi and blood, simplify the fighting formula, and combine it with the path of Azura that I previously comprehended. The explosive power will increase and the number of times I can use it will increase." Lu Cheng explained tirelessly, half describing for his wife, and half summarizing himself. As for the control of strength and moves, those are just minor details. Oh right, cool, from tomorrow onwards, I'll teach you the fighting formula. We'll go to bed on time tonight to replenish our energy. Okay, Yenjika replied happily. Her eyes sparkled as she listened to Lu Cheng's explanation. After a pause, she recalled something and quickly asked, "Is there still no news on the wholeness formula?" No. It's the secret technique of the extreme Hadis sect. I don't think it's that easy to get hold of it. Even the military has to consider many things, Lu Cheng said with a sigh. Just then, a thought came to him and he suddenly broke into laughter. I realized there's another use for the ice mirror breakthrough. I won't talk about it, not suitable for children. Yenjika was instantly filled with curiosity. She asked repeatedly, using both her hands and legs, sometimes threatening and sometimes acting coquettishly. After a round of banter, Lu Qing raised his hands in surrender and confessed honestly. He said in an extremely academic tone, "Didn't you complain that I'm too old to come out last night?" Using that was a little insensitive. But now that the ice mirror has improved to the self-reflection realm, I can control it to a certain extent. Anyway, with self-adjustment of sensitivity and listening skill, the effect should be pretty good. At first, Yenjika felt shy listening to him, but in the end, it turned into a standard dumbfounded look. Cheng, how did you end up in this aspect when practicing martial arts, applying what I've learned? Lu Cheng was just about to give a humorous reply when he was immediately pummeled by delicate punches. At the end of their banter, Yenjika sensed that the atmosphere was a little off. She quickly turned her back to Lu Cheng, buried her face in the pillow, and announced in a muffled voice, "I fell asleep." Lu Cheng couldn't help but laugh. Thinking of how his girl hadn't slept the entire night and how she didn't even need to sleep with the help of the swordsman formula, he felt a pang of pity for her. Suppressing the urge, he hugged her from behind and kissed her lightly on the cheek. "Good night." "Good night." Yenjika's dimples slowly blossomed. The next morning, the two woke up feeling refreshed. Lu Qing found a pen and paper and wrote the fighting formula. After finishing his training and breakfast, he continued on to the campus of Connecticut University. After waving goodbye to Yenjika, he took a detour to the Msasi martial arts gym. When he passed by a block, he suddenly heard gunshots. He saw two armed robbers wearing balaclavas running out of the bank in front of him. They seemed to be a white man and a black man. "Hey, is there a chance to crack down on crime?" Lu Cheng's spirits were lifted. He was eager and excited. Just as he was about to make a move, a figure flashed past and knocked over one of the robbers with a bang. The figure was dressed like Superman. Just as he was about to dodge and attack the remaining robber, a net made of silk threads fell from the sky and enveloped his target. Whoosh! 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 Another two figures rushed over. Lu Cheng was a little dumbfounded. There are too many superheroes in America, aren't there? It's just a case of robbing a bank, and there are three of them. In the next block, Smith, who was watching the surveillance footage, laughed out loud. These two bastards sure are unlucky. Three superheroes happened to be having breakfast nearby. At this point, he silently added another sentence. And a dangerous grade monster passed by. The incident in the morning passed in a flash. Lu Qing shook his head and left the scene. He had some thoughts in his mind. Since the Americans are so passionate about acting as superheroes, will there be people acting as them? No, let's not talk about acting. Will there be people imitating high-end, perverted criminals? This seems to be their tradition. I have to go back and collect information to see if there are similar criminals in Connecticut. Could it be possible for them to endanger Yenjika? I have to take precautions. Sigh, it's a pity that I'm not familiar with this place. No intelligence, no resources, no evidence, no clues. If I'm not careful, I'll cross the line and be deported. Otherwise, I could really come up with a Connecticut criminal cleanup plan. I'll visit them one by one and blow them up at one point. Lu Cheng's thoughts ran wild as he arrived at the entrance of the Msasi martial arts gym. P.S. Connecticut criminals. Who the F*** did we offend? Chapter 500. Msasi Martial Arts Arena. As the students participating in the advanced course had decent combat skills, they could easily catch up without any preparation. Therefore, Lu Cheng was assigned to one of the groups by Brooke without much trouble and was assigned to an exclusive training ground. There was a total of 9 people in the group. There were a total of 9 people in this group, including him. Most of them were young men with strong physiques and natural advantages. Only 3 of them did not belong to this group. One of them was the red-eyed girl, Audiobook, who was more than 1.8 meters tall. From the way the other students were fearful of her, it could be seen that she was not weak and could be considered as a big sister figure. The other one was the middle-aged man with gray hair and sagging cheeks, Cole. Under normal circumstances, at his age, he should have chosen the fitness class. However, he trained crazily more than anyone else. His eyes were filled with ferocity, and every punch and kick seemed to be filled with all his strength. As for the third one, it was of course Lu Cheng himself. His muscles were moderate and his strength was hidden. Therefore, he could not fully support his combat suit. Compared to the other students, he was shorter and skinnier. However, the other students did not discriminate or provoke him. Since he could join the advanced course, he must have a good foundation. Their speculations were quickly confirmed by Coach Lin Delo's introduction. This was an Asian kid who had practiced Chinese martial arts. After observing for a while, Lu Cheng gained an intuitive understanding of the fighting techniques of the Jaruga sect. They used boxing as their core, mixed with jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and were very good at using the body and restricting the joints. However, this was all part of the basic content, and was not shown at all when it came to the integration of the body's spirituality and the ability to communicate with all living things. With Lu Cheng's current insight, knowledge, and foundation, he joined the training after 20 minutes and got the hang of it quickly. It was as though he had been immersed in it for at least 5 years. Audiobook and the other students were amazed and speechless. Only the middle-aged man, Cole, was not interested in anything else. He treated the void in front of him as his mortal enemy and kept on punching and kicking, making cracking sounds. Not bad. He is already at the level of a professional 9th pin. Why hasn't he become a combat apprentice? Lu Cheng glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. After more than an hour, Coach Lin Delo announced that the combat training had come to an end. Everyone entered the room at the side and began to awaken their spirituality. This was also the reason why the advanced course was worth $5,000 and why there were so many applicants. After entering the room, Audiobook picked up the corresponding towel and wiped the sweat off her forehead. She glanced at the shy and introverted Asian boy Lu Cheng. He was calm and composed with barely any sweat on his forehead. It seemed like he was just warming up. How magical. She looked at the other students and started whispering to them, attributing everything to the mysterious Chinese martial arts. Actually, I was really just warming up. Lu Cheng could vaguely sense what they were thinking and said to himself in amusement. At this time, Coach Lin Delo closed the door, stood in the center, and said to the 9 students sitting around him. He looked at the 9 students in front of him and said to them, "The strength of the body is the key to strengthening the own spirit. However, it is also the cage that restricts us from awakening the own spirit. Therefore, we need to strengthen our body through hard training and let it fall into a state of fatigue to reduce the interference. Your current state is very suitable for the awakening training." He had said similar words many times in the past. However, as there was a new student joining them today, he had to say it again. Her body was tired but her spirit was still excited. Audiobook followed the breathing rhythm that Lin Delo taught her and slowly adjusted her breathing. She gradually felt a strange sense of calmness in her heart. At that moment, Lin Delo pressed the remote control and let the surrounding sound system play a sacred and melodious melody. He was guiding the students to become more relaxed. When she was extremely relaxed, Audiobook felt like her spirit was floating. She seemed to have seen the spirituality that belonged to her. However, she was still unable to awaken it and communicate with it. Isn't this meditating? However, there is a subtle difference. It seems to have some application of self-hypnosis mixed in. Lu Qing experienced the attempt to awaken the own spirit with great interest. His consciousness was above and looked down at his body. He grasped every change in it without missing anything. He was like a god that ruled over this body. Yes, this is not called own spirit. It should be called own spirit. Encountering God in the void, God is oneself. Half an hour later, Linda Luo stopped playing the ethereal music and said to the few disappointed students, "Let's go. Don't try anymore. Otherwise, you will lose yourself." After saying that, he took out a dark red box that seemed to be used to store jewelry. Yes, it was really a box used to store jewelry. After opening it, there was a blue gem lying inside. "This is a sapphire that my teacher, Mr. Joseph, the Grandmaster of martial arts, made. He used the own spirit as the main source of the polishing and gave it a certain level of spirituality. Try to communicate with it and tell me what you feel. This is the practice of communicating with the spirituality of all things. It can help you awaken the own spirit," said Lin Dello seriously. He was a black-haired Caucasian man who was less than 30 years old. He was obviously of Latin descent. The lines on his face looked like they were carved by knives and axes. According to the order, the middle-aged man, Cole, was the first to receive the gem. He communicated with it quietly for a while before opening his eyes and revealing his grayish-white pupils. "I feel a patch of blue." Lin Dello nodded slightly and didn't comment. He let Cole pass the message clockwise. "I feel like I'm touching water. I almost couldn't breathe just now. Waves, waves, I see waves." After a few people, the object of spirituality was in the hands of the extremely curious Lu Qing. He imitated the other students and placed the gem in his palm. He placed it horizontally on his left chest and closed his eyes. Focusing his thoughts, he reflected in the ice mirror. His mind slowly descended and came into contact with the gem. It seemed to surround and envelop it. Ripples appeared in his heart lake. Within the ice mirror, a crashing sound could be heard. It was a surging sea that filled the surroundings. It was deep blue, layered, and dimly glowing. Essence. Charm. These two words popped up in Lu Cheng's mind. He felt that this sapphire was very similar to the paper on which he had written the fighting formula. However, there were subtle differences. There are 3,000 paths, but they all lead to the same destination. He suddenly remembered a saying in a cultivation classic. His mind and consciousness immersed in the gem, wanting to explore more. With a crashing sound, the waves of the blue sea surged and churned to the bottom. There was a layer of blood-like water. Thick, sticky, stinky, cruel, evil, and many other sensations appeared in Lu Cheng's ice mirror, creating exaggerated ripples and hideous cracks. Lu Qing responded in his mind. He visualized the ice spirit holy light and moved a little forward. The blood flow immediately retreated and the ice mirror regained its stability. The blue sea once again covered everything, except for the coldness. It seemed to have two poles. What's going on? When the Grandmaster of martial arts Joseph was polishing the gem, he couldn't control his emotions and allowed the negative things to taint his spirituality. Moreover, this evil feeling was buried very deep. It would be difficult to detect or trigger the changes if one wasn't of a similar level. Experts of a similar level wouldn't have the time to study the spiritual item that Joseph was polishing for his disciple. Lu Qing was still in a state where he didn't know much about the awakening and polishing of the Jaruga sect. It was hard for him to figure out the real reason. He opened his eyes and briefly explained his feelings. The sea. Lin Deluo's eyes were filled with surprise. After a while, he nodded and said, "That's right. This Asian kid's spirituality is very strong." Seeing that no one noticed anything unusual, Lu Qing secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He passed the sapphire to Othaway, who was beside him. Othaway got into position and communicated with him silently for a while. She opened her eyes happily and replied, "Coach, I see an iceberg." While Lu Qing was speechless, Lin Deluo shook his head with a sour expression. Hathaway, you've regressed. Hathaway's smile instantly collapsed. The two following students, one saying, cold, and the other saying, deep water, witnessed the remnants of Lu Cheng's influence gradually fading away without them realizing it. After the practice of own spirit came to an end, Lu Cheng and the rest started their combat training again. This allowed him to re-understand the foundation of his martial arts from different perspectives and concepts. From there, he could find problems that he couldn't detect in the past. Stones from other mountains can be used to attack jade. At 11:30 p.m., Lin Deluo announced the end of the class for the day. If anyone wanted to come in the afternoon, they could do an hour of free practice. Lu Cheng didn't have the time to care about the other students. He took a shower, changed his clothes, and returned to Connecticut University to have lunch with Yen Jika. With his company, Du Yen had the time to do something of her own. After noon, Du Yen returned and the girl re-entered the classroom. Lu Cheng found the nearest cafe and asked for an iced latte. As he drank, he used the local internet to search for famous criminals in Connecticut. The first thing that came into his view was a scary guy known as the God Slayer. He committed crimes all over America, not just in Connecticut. He took pleasure in killing famous superheroes. Other than that, there was no pattern to his crimes. Until now, he hadn't been caught. This guy probably has the strength of a physical invulnerability expert. Lu Cheng exclaimed. However, the God Slayer targeted powerful superheroes. It was almost impossible for him to affect Cuckoo, so he didn't need to be wary of him. Lu Cheng swiped his thumb and looked at the search results again. Every year, the Nightmare would randomly kill people. His targets have no pattern. The only thing that can be confirmed is that when the corpse is found, the forehead will be slit vertically and there seems to be an additional bloody eye. According to the police report, there was once a person who tried to commit a crime to escape the law. In the end, he provoked the Nightmare and became the next victim. From the limited 2 encounters, this guy is considered a veteran Grandmaster of martial arts in America. He's similar to our Inhuman, no leads, no leads. Lu Cheng sipped his coffee in frustration. His plan to clean up criminals had been foiled before it even started. He didn't even know who the culprit was. Out of habit, he continued to scroll down. He saw that there were cases of 2 to 4 female high school students and below disappearing every year. After years of police investigation, they could basically confirm that the culprit was the same person, codenamed Butcher. On the list of suspects listed online, Lu Cheng saw a familiar name. Joseph? Joseph from the Msasi martial arts gym? In an ordinary car on the street, Smith looked at the surveillance camera and asked his subordinates, "Can you find out what he's seen?" "Yes, but you need to use the Skynet, boss," answered the guy wearing a baseball cap casually. Chapter 501. Joseph? Seeing this name, Lu Cheng immediately recalled his experience of communicating with the gemstone spiritual object in the morning. He remembered the sticky, smelly, evil, and cruel blood. That was a gemstone polished by martial artist Johnny Joseph with his own spirit. The tainted deep spirituality seemed to have originated from the negative factors at the bottom of his heart or his prolonged emotional loss. Thinking of this, Lu Cheng perked up. He began to research why Joseph was listed as a suspect. The blood of a missing girl, Taylor, was found in the woods near his villa. His ex-wife spread the word that he believed in the devil and that he had cult books like the Pure Girl's Spirit at home. Another victim, Sonny's boyfriend, accused him of seeing figures similar to Joseph around the scene of the possible disappearance. However, the broken camera couldn't provide any evidence. Reading line by line, Lu Cheng realized that these clues couldn't clearly prove that Joseph was the culprit. They couldn't even make him undergo a strict investigation. However, combined with the abnormality of the sapphire, he was somewhat confident. In an ordinary sedan on the street, a young man in a baseball cap was typing rapidly on the keyboard. "Boss, he's looking at famous criminals and cases in Connecticut." Smith was stunned. He took the laptop from his subordinate and slid his index finger across the touch screen, reading the content that Lu Cheng had read. This was feedback from the internet service provider. What is he planning to do? Does he want to play the role of a superhero? Asked the young man in the baseball cap, seeking to communicate. After a moment of silence, Smith slowly opened his mouth. This is probably the hobby of Chinese martial artists. In Chinese, it's called qia, or learn from each other. He uttered the words he had learned during his research over the past few days in a strange accent. He then added, don't our mixed martial arts masters like challenges as well? I think I get it. He's looking for a challenge that won't get him kicked out of the game. The young man in the baseball cap was enlightened. Boss, you have to think of a way to warn him. Don't make this a big deal. Smith nodded slightly and didn't say anything else. He returned the laptop to his subordinate and pointed outside. I'll go get a cup of hot coffee. Do you want one? No need. Can I have some Coke? The young man in the baseball cap smiled brightly. After getting out of the car, Smith went to another shop and bought a cup of steaming black coffee. Then, he took the elevator to the top floor and entered the rooftop. Leaning against the edge, he silently looked down at the building opposite. The short building was called Msasi Martial Arts Arena. A few minutes later, the door of the rooftop was opened. The gray-haired middle-aged man, Cole, appeared with a bag of things in his hand. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were cold. Smith. Cole was stunned for a second before he let out a sigh. You're here again. Smith picked up the cup, downed the remaining coffee that had cooled down, and smiled bitterly. Uncle Cole, how have you been? I still haven't awakened my own spirit, and I still haven't become Joseph's combat apprentice. Cole took out a can of beer, opened it with a bang, and took a deep gulp. The pale yellow beads of water flowed down his chin, which he had forgotten to shave, past his grayish-white and messy beard stubble, and fell to the ground, breaking into 8 pieces. Smith opened his mouth, as though he wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say a word. He crushed the cup into a ball, turned around, and left the rooftop. He found a supermarket and bought a can of Coke for his subordinate. He instructed him to go home and rest, to ensure that he had enough energy to wait for his next shift. As for the other members of the team, they were sent off to do other things. After studying for a long time, Lu Qing suddenly broke into laughter. He was mocking himself for being too engrossed in his role. Even if he was fairly certain that martial artist Johnny Joseph was the criminal, butcher, who had been active for more than a decade, he could still pay him a visit with peace of mind. However, if he couldn't find any concrete evidence, it would be very troublesome to clean up the mess. This was a veteran mighty one with a relatively high status. In this way, if he was not careful, he would become a criminal. In a place where he was unfamiliar with the people and there were not many resources to borrow, not to mention the serious consequences, the lightest punishment would be deportation, and his visa would be denied. This would contradict his most important request. Should he seek help from the military? They definitely have an intelligence network in America, but how should he ask? As the thought flashed through his mind, Lu Qing had already simulated the most likely conversation. I'm going to deal with Johnny Joseph. I need intelligence support. Why? He's a perverted criminal. He might endanger my wife. Oh. Does he know your wife? No. Does his target group include your wife? No. Then why do you want to deal with him? Do you understand? There's a certain possibility. A small possibility. I want to take precautions. Please forgive me for not understanding your train of thought. Lu Qing shook his head and mocked himself when he thought of a similar scenario. He temporarily put aside the idea of visiting the butcher. Joseph's target should only be young girls. He wouldn't be able to find college students, not to mention Ku, who was just one of the many female college students, even though perverted criminals like him are detestable and everyone has the right to kill them, and I also have a sense of justice, I still have to consider the actual situation. Lu Qing picked up his iced latte and drank the last mouthful. Seeing that it was still early, he decided to head to the Msasi martial arts gym for another hour of free practice. I can't relax my expectations of myself just because I'm already an inhuman and my strength is internalized. Even if I don't train, my realm won't regress. My target has never been an inhuman. The past doesn't count. Picking up his phone, Lu Qing walked out of the cafe. Just as he was about to identify the road, a car suddenly appeared in front of him and slowly stopped by the roadside. "Hello, Lu," greeted the driver with a smile. "Who's that?" Lu Qing looked over in confusion. He felt that the young and sunny face was a little familiar. But, in his eyes, most foreigners look the same. "You asked me for directions yesterday," Smith reminded him. "Oh, it's you." Lu Qing suddenly remembered. Then, a thought came to him and he blurted out, "How do you know my surname is Lu?" At that moment, his hair stood on end. He was like a monster that was about to pounce. His natural aura made Smith shiver. He almost lost control of his body and abandoned the car to escape. Taking a deep breath, Smith maintained his smile. He took out his identification and introduced himself. "I'm Smith from the Department of Homeland Security. I'm in charge of monitoring your activities in Connecticut." His actions didn't violate the regulations. Such monitoring could be communicated with the target. Reminders and warnings were given first to let Chinese martial artists know that they were under the strict supervision of the state apparatus. This could effectively reduce the occurrence of violent incidents and nip the problem in the bud. However, follow-up monitoring wouldn't be reduced because of this. They would detect and prevent unforeseen events at the first instance. This was actually the most common method used by many experienced agents when they received similar missions. However, Smith was a greenhorn and had a bit of aggressiveness. Hence, he chose to monitor in secret. Lu Qing was stunned for a second. From the corner of his eye, he saw his image playing on the screen of the computer in the passenger seat. He was convinced. "Can I verify your identification number?" Just as he finished speaking, he saw the corner of Smith's mouth twitch. It was as if he heard the other party shouting about the trust between people. "Sure," Smith maintained his expression and answered in a deep voice. Lu Qing searched for a way to verify. After confirming, he nodded and asked, "Mr. Smith, why are you looking for me?" He had long heard and could reasonably deduce that martial artists of his level would be monitored when they entered the United States. That was why he was so cautious about his words and actions. He didn't randomly challenge others to learn from. Now that he had met the head of the Secret Service in charge of monitoring him, he finally felt relieved. "Lu, let's talk in the car." Smith picked up the computer and pointed at the passenger seat. Lu Qing was bold and had a clear conscience. He immediately pulled open the car door, sat in, and fastened his seatbelt. Smith was dumbfounded by this small action. It was like a magical fantasy. Why would a monster like this need a seatbelt? He calmed himself down, started the car, and drove to another street. After a moment of thought, he said, "Lu, you're investigating famous criminals in Connecticut. You want to spar with them? So that's why he's here to warn me?" Lu Qing seemed to come to a realization. He chuckled. "It's just a casual investigation. I've always been law-abiding." As though he didn't hear his explanation, Smith continued. "Actually, we still have some evidence on Joseph, more than what has been revealed. However, we can't form a complete chain of evidence. He's also a veteran martial artist with status and connections. He's on good terms with many senators and lawyers. We can't apply for a search warrant. Sunny is a very intelligent girl. According to the Jaruga sect, her father once heard the remnants of her cries and screams around Joseph's villa. He believed that there must be a criminal case and evidence buried there. As long as we could enter and search, we would definitely be able to find clues and arrest Joseph. But no one listens to us. It's been 5 years since a superhero tried to infiltrate Joseph's villa, but he was discovered and sent to prison. In recent years, whenever Joseph goes out, he'll get his students to guard the villa. He's also installed a high-tech surveillance and alarm system. Superheroes and detectives rarely interfere." Lu Qing fell into deep thought. He nodded slowly. You want me to visit Joseph, challenge him, defeat him, and give you a chance to search for evidence? You can say that, Smith replied in a deep voice. But what if you fall out with him? What if you don't admit to it? And what does this have to do with Homeland Security? Lu Qing wouldn't trust a stranger's words so easily. Everything would be fine if they could find evidence. But what if they couldn't? The other party could simply be using him and wouldn't help to eliminate any future problems. Smith tilted his head and looked at Lu Qing. His deep-set eyes were filled with sorrow and pain. I'll take care of the alarm system here. If we can't find any evidence, as long as you disguise yourself well and don't let Joseph get hurt too badly, this will just be an ordinary attack case involving a superhero that we can't find any suspects. I can cover it up. At this point, he took a deep breath and said, when you were searching for information, you should have seen the photo of the victim, Sunny, and her boyfriend. You should have seen him being interviewed. Lu Cheng's memories lit up. The photo of the blonde girl's boyfriend flashed across his mind. Gradually, they overlapped with the head of the Secret Service before him. Judging from the time, Smith must have joined the national apparatus because of this matter. Lu Cheng's wariness was mostly gone. He began to believe Smith's words. Retracting his gaze, Smith looked ahead. I know this is a difficult choice for you. Joseph is also a dangerous monster. You might not be able to win against him. Besides, you can only defeat him and not kill him. Before he could finish his sentence, he saw Lu Qing light up his phone from the corner of his eye. He calmly buried his head and focused on watching a video. It was a compilation of Joseph's battles from the past year. Chapter 502. Smith shut his mouth and focused on the road ahead. He let the car turn onto another road in the quiet atmosphere. It took many twists and turns, going back and forth, and circling around Kingstown University again and again. After a long while, Lu Qing exited the video interface and opened the app. He replied to Yan Jika's complaint about the professor, unhurried as usual. What's your answer? Smith asked expectantly and nervously. His voice was a little hoarse. Lu Qing glanced at him casually and didn't answer. He sent a message to Yan Jika first. Do you want me to be the bane of evil? What's the situation? Yan Jika replied with an emoji of a confused and adorable mythical beast. An agent from the Department of Homeland Security is looking for me for a favor. Coincidentally, it's in line with my plans. The situation is too complicated, so I'll tell you about it after dinner. It's not dangerous. The worst-case scenario is that you have to find me a good lawyer so that it won't affect my future visa. Lu Qing replied with a smile. Empress Dowager knows a few good lawyers and has the backing of an agent from the Homeland Security Bureau. You'll be fine as long as you don't cause any big trouble. Yan Jika saw how confident Lu Qing was, as if he was going to the next street to buy groceries. She wasn't worried, but more curious and puzzled. Qing really can't stop worrying no matter where he goes. What's your answer? Seeing that Lu Qing had stopped chatting, Smith repeated his question. His sunlit face was tense, afraid to reveal the turbulent emotions in his heart. No problem. Lu Qing locked his phone with a click and answered calmly. With the strength that Johnny Joseph had displayed in the past year, Lu Qing was confident that he could beat him in a one-on-one duel before he made a breakthrough in Ice Mirror. What's more, this was a surprise attack, and his Ice Mirror had reached the level of encountering gods in the void. Self-reflection, no problem. Smith was shocked and surprised at the same time. He could feel the strong confidence that was hidden deep under the surface. Is he really fine? Although Joseph's strength had been fluctuating, it had always been at the dangerous grade. In the past 6 months, it felt like he had returned to his peak and was on the same level as the Chinese monster beside him. He definitely wasn't an enemy that could be easily dealt with confidence. Smith was worried and emphasized this point. Seeing that Lu Qing was unmoved, he didn't mention it again. He had waited for 5 years for such an opportunity. He was not willing to miss it because of his misgivings. He only wanted to grasp it firmly. At 4 in the afternoon, Joseph will leave the saucy martial arts gym and return to his home in the suburbs. At that time, the students guarding his villa will leave, leaving him alone. I will use my authority to enter the system and cut off the connection between the police station and his alarm system. All the police and security officers patrolling the area will pass by his villa once every 28 to 35 minutes. He has scheduled an afternoon tea at 4:40. This is his habit. It's to replenish his energy from his free training in the afternoon. This is your chance, and this is our chance. Smith spoke one by one as he considered all the possibilities. To him, this matter had been on his mind day and night for 5 years. Lu Cheng listened quietly. His confidence in this matter had increased by another 10%. When he didn't understand a word, he would take the context into consideration and seek common ground. If it was really an obstacle to communication, he would ask Smith to repeat it, explain it, or provide key words for translation. As they conversed, Smith drove to another street and brought back a jacket often worn by delivery boys and a few empty lunchboxes. He also gave Lu Cheng the baseball cap that his subordinates had left in the car. This was to prevent Johnny Joseph from remembering his face and reporting him in the future. This was exactly what Lu Cheng wanted. This was exactly what Lu Cheng wanted. Johnny Joseph wasn't a loner. He was one of the top 10 mighty ones in the entire Jaruga sect. He had teachers, students, and friends. If he left any traces behind, it would be troublesome. At 4:23, Johnny Joseph drove his Hummer back to the entrance of the villa. He happened to see the black giant Olsen driving a similarly exaggerated car. Beep. 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 He pressed the horn to stop the car. What? Olsen stepped on the brakes and rubbed his bald head, revealing a mouthful of extremely white teeth. Joseph had a layer of light yellow hair. He stared at Olsen with his blue eyes and said in a cold tone, "Watch your mouth. I don't want to hear you make fun of me again." Olsen's skin was so dark that it was shiny, but his eyes were filled with anger. However, when he looked into Joseph's eyes, he saw that there seemed to be a storm and waves brewing in Joseph's deep blue eyes. He couldn't help but shiver. His emotions faded away, and he raised his arm to show that he already knew about the warning. He muttered, "I'm sorry, Joseph. Seriously, you don't have a sense of humor." He released the brakes, stepped on the accelerator and drove to another villa. Coward, coward. Joseph cursed under his breath, as if he couldn't wait to fight with Olsen on the spot. He was about 40 years old. He was a Caucasian brawny man who was more than 1.9 meters tall. The muscles on his arms and chest were well-defined and exceptionally eye-catching. "You can get ready now." Watching this scene from afar, Smith said with a trembling voice. Lu Cheng was both nervous and expectant. At this moment, he took out his black-rimmed glasses and put them on his nose bridge. He lowered the front of his baseball cap and covered half of his face with the shadows. He held a quarter in his right hand and let it flip and jump between his fingers. After parking the car and walking to the door, Joseph saw 4 students coming after hearing the news. They stood in a row and greeted him respectfully. He nodded satisfactorily and said a few words. Then he waved his hand and let the students leave. He closed the door and walked into the treasure room on the first floor. There were many carefully polished gems placed here. Some were bright red, some were clear green, and some were light blue like lake water. There were all kinds of gems, and as their radiance intertwined, they rippled with a sense of peace and tranquility. Other than that, there were also tree carvings, bone carvings, and other works of art on the shelves and tables. They all gave off a sense of spirituality. They'll never find it. Joseph let out a smug and sinister laugh. He closed his eyes and released his own spirituality, immersing himself in the quiet light. It was as if he could see holy, pure, and beautiful faces. They were illusory and floating, like spirits that walked on water. Just as he sank into a drug-like frenzy, the doorbell suddenly rang. It rang again, and every sound was ear-piercing. Damn it. Why did he come early? Joseph opened his eyes in anger. His blue pupils were clearly bloodshot. He took a deep breath and calmed down. He turned and walked to the door. Since he was skilled and bold, he only glanced at the surveillance camera casually. After confirming that it was the food delivery guy, he reached out and opened the door. He saw the delivery guy with a baseball cap and a slightly lowered head. No. At that moment, Joseph, whose own spirit was powerful, suddenly felt as if he was facing a monster or a demon. At that moment, Lu Cheng flicked his finger. The coin in the slit flew up with a clang, creating sparks of gold and red. It distorted its shape and shot towards Joseph's face. In 12 minutes, the patrolling police would pass by this place. Boom! When Joseph extended his fan-like palm to block, the coin that was infused with Emperor Yen force suddenly exploded. The fragments flew forward and split into 2, then into 4, and then into 8. The enemy was caught off guard and was only able to send 1/3 of the fragments flying. At that critical moment, a blue glow appeared on Joseph's body. It significantly reduced the speed of the shards, causing them to only leave a red mark on his skin. Lu Cheng had just flicked the coin when he retracted his chi and blood. He quickly swung his left fist, which was covered in frost formed by ice shards, towards the enemy's lower abdomen. The meal box fell. Joseph's other fist rushed forward in a hurry, blocking his opponent's attack with exaggerated bulging muscles. Bam! The blue glow around Joseph instantly shrunk and seemed to have solidified. It was as if the sea had encountered a cold wave from the north and south poles. Ice spirit force. Lu Cheng's left arm rebounded. His chi and blood gathered and then exploded. He shook his right shoulder and swung his heavy fist sideways, igniting a crimson flame. Boom! Just as Joseph was about to block, he was hit by a shockwave similar to an explosive explosion. The already solidified blue glow shattered and scattered in all directions, vanishing into thin air. His body couldn't take it anymore, and he staggered backwards. Once Emperor Yen was out, the enemy was invincible. This was the fully formed Emperor Yen force. As Joseph retreated, Lu Cheng took a step forward and threw a punch of Ice Spirit and Emperor Yen at the same time, leaving no gaps. He always maintained the optimal distance between each step, as if he was measuring accurately. Joseph couldn't retaliate, dodge, or escape. Bam, 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 bam. Lu Cheng was like a robot. Following a predetermined sequence, he ruthlessly unleashed his Dan force. Half of it was light, half of it was heavy, and he invited Emperor Yen. After 8 consecutive exchanges, Joseph, who didn't understand what was going on, felt hot and cold at the same time. His strong body began to tremble. If not for his many years of fame and the fact that he had recovered to his peak by absorbing pure spirits, he probably wouldn't have been able to withstand it. Bam! Lu Cheng took another step forward. Using the realm of encountering gods in the void, he activated his chi and blood, stimulating a certain part of his body. His muscles swelled, and his fascias opened up. He seemed to have grown much taller. This was a simulation of the circulation of the fighting formula. The effect wasn't as good as the original, but the advantage was that there was no need to pronounce it. Boom! He swung his fist down and landed on Joseph's forearm. A ball of crimson flames burst out, creating a violent shockwave. His opponent's stance was forcefully broken, and he staggered backwards. Then, he took a sliding step and threw a punch forward. Joseph, who had not been able to use his strength, knew that he was in a desperate situation. He roared and awakened something hidden in the bottom of his heart. The scattered blue brilliance on the surface of his body shone again, and it was dyed with a dark red color that was close to black. Then, he splashed it at the enemy who was sliding and punching. Lu Cheng seemed to have been prepared for this. With a squeeze of his tailbone and a quick twist of his waist, he forcibly changed his direction and circled behind Joseph. The 19th move of the Ice Sect, Frost Devour. Whoosh! The dark red light splashed onto the ground, corroding a large pit. At the same time, Lu Cheng visualized, turned his waist and back, and swung his fist at the enemy, who couldn't dodge in time. His fist landed on the enemy's arm, which he hurriedly put up as a shield. Severe warning. With a muffled thud, the brilliance on Joseph's body completely froze and turned crystal clear. His eyes lost focus. Lu Cheng didn't hold back and struck again. His fist went up from his waist like a cannon and landed on his opponent's abdomen, triggering an internal explosion. Boom! Joseph's body jerked and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He finally recovered from his frozen state. But before he could control his body, he was hit by Lu Cheng's severe warning again. His vision was completely unfocused, and he turned into an ice sculpture. Lu Cheng took half a step forward and slapped Joseph's left temple with his right hand, knocking him out. Throughout the whole process, Joseph, who was ambushed, didn't have a chance. His every move was reflected in Lu Cheng's ice mirror. Lu Cheng clapped his hands and shook off the ice crystals. He didn't leave any fingerprints. Then, he called Smith, who was waiting outside. "It's done," he reported concisely. There was silence on the other side. Only his breathing was getting heavier. "Lu seems to have just entered the door. P.S. It's Monday. I'm looking for a recommendation." Chapter 503. After a moment of silence, Smith replied with a trembling voice, "All right, I'll be right there." After ending the call, Lu Cheng scanned his surroundings but couldn't find any valuable clues. He had no choice but to turn his attention back to the unconscious Joseph. In the previous battle, it seemed like it was easy for him to kill the Grandmaster of Combat without giving him a chance to retaliate. But in reality, to achieve such an effect, he had gone all out and held nothing back. With the ice mirror as the core, he had perfectly integrated his prediction, force, unique skill, footwork, and other skills into one. That was how he had managed to subdue his opponent without any accidents. An inhuman mighty one wasn't as easy to deal with as he made it out to be. Because of that, he didn't hide the characteristics of his martial arts, nor could he. Even if he didn't know how he looked, Joseph would be able to find out who the attacker was after he regained consciousness. That would leave behind a rather troublesome trail. When he first thought about the Connecticut criminal cleanup plan, he was thinking that he could easily disguise the characteristics of his martial arts and mix in the techniques of the Jaruga sect. However, if he were to face a stronger enemy, once he was sure that he was guilty, it wasn't as if he couldn't be ruthless. It wasn't uncommon for people to have their brains damaged during a battle. Anyway, the American government would probably like such results. According to his master, their man-made weapons project urgently required Grandmasters of Combat who had been thoroughly brainwashed. But considering that he wasn't familiar with this place, he didn't have any information or clues. Rashly determining who was guilty and who deserved to die wasn't in line with his beliefs. Moreover, it could easily leave behind other influences. So, he gave up on the sudden plan. It was as though he was playing a YY game. Who knew he would run into Smith? As agents, they should have more ways to deal with such situations. If it really doesn't work out, I'll do it myself. Step by step. As Lu Cheng's thoughts raced, Smith had already parked the car. He maintained interference with the alarm system, walked into the villa, picked up the dropped lunchbox, and closed the door. His gaze swept past Lu Cheng, whose face was covered by his glasses, and landed on the unconscious Joseph on the ground. His facial muscles suddenly twitched, and veins appeared in his eyes. It was as though he couldn't wait to pounce on him and chew on his enemy's flesh. It's too fast. Sonny's father hasn't arrived yet. Let me do a preliminary search first. Smith was also an agent who had undergone years of training and evolved superpowers. He quickly calmed down. Lu Cheng nodded slightly and said in a low voice, "If you can't find any clues, I can help." With his perception abilities after breaking through the ice mirror, he might be able to see more than an experienced person and discover subtle clues. Through his communication with the Gem Fae and other evidence, he was almost certain that Joseph was the murderer. He was the butcher, who was the main source of the Connecticut girl's nightmares. That was why he was so certain. There were many superhumans and psychics in the United States. If there was any other evidence, the case would have been solved long ago. In other words, Joseph's villa was the key to the case. Smith believed that he could find something here, and so did Lu Cheng. Okay, you can deal with the scene first. Smith took out the device and began to search from the first floor. He opened the door of the treasure room and cast most of his eyes on the shiny bone sculpture. However, due to the process of identification, he could not make a direct judgment. He could only knock on it to check and scrape off the debris. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, used pure fire force and ice force to give Joseph a few hits, destroying the remaining symptoms of Emperor Yen force and ice spirit force. He also cleaned up the traces of the battle in the living room to ensure that he did not miss any clues that belonged to him. After a few minutes, when Smith was feeling a little impatient because he could not find any evidence, the doorbell rang. Lu Cheng narrowed his eyes. His hair stood on end as he prepared himself for action. Smith came out of the treasure room and waved his hand. It's Sonny's father. We have to hurry. The delivery guy will be here in 10 minutes. As he spoke, he walked to the door and took a look at the surveillance camera. He unsealed the door and let in a middle-aged man with gray hair and sagging cheeks. Cole. Lu Cheng was stunned. He muttered to himself. Isn't this the same Cole who followed Joseph's student, Lynn Dello, to practice the Jaruga technique? In the morning, I was still surprised that he did not become a combat apprentice despite being a professional ninth pin fighter. He seemed to have to awaken his own spirit before he could make the promotion. From the looks of it, he has other plans. As soon as Cole stepped in, his eyes were attracted to Joseph on the floor. His tightly shut mouth made the sound of grinding teeth. The flesh on his sagging cheeks trembled. His gaze was filled with hatred, violence, and madness. It was as though he could melt and penetrate the body of his enemy. Uncle Cole, hurry up, reminded Smith. Cole panted heavily. He forcibly retracted his gaze and began to scan his surroundings. He did not recognize Lu Cheng. He only nodded gratefully at the superhero, who was wearing a baseball cap and black-framed glasses. He could not see his face clearly. He's Sonny's father? Lu Cheng asked in a low voice while Cole was looking elsewhere with a sorrowful expression. He believed that with Smith's monitoring of him, he should know that he was in the same class as Cole. Yes. Uncle Cole wants to become Joseph's student so he can guard this place, answered Smith with a gloomy and pained expression. Isn't he afraid of being discovered? Asked Lu Cheng, puzzled. For a devil who has killed at least 40 innocent girls, how can he remember their many relatives? Uncle Cole divorced Sonny's mother a long time ago. He only comes to visit her a few times a year, said Smith after a moment of silence. He regrets his choice back then. While the two of them were talking, Cole seemed to have been summoned by something and heard a voice. A layer of mist appeared in his gray eyes. He turned around and walked towards the treasure room. He stared at the crimson gem and muttered to himself, what a pity. Sonny, is that you? Sonny, is that you? He extended his right hand and touched the surface of the gemstone with trembling hands. Suddenly, the gemstone lit up as though it had been illuminated by a strong light. Patches of crimson jumped out from the gemstone and caressed Cole's cheeks. Sonny. Sonny. Cole shouted in a low voice. The fog in his eyes condensed into droplets of water that slid down his rough face and grayish-white beard stubble. The surrounding gemstones and sculptures were affected by this as they shimmered with spiritual light, enveloping the treasure room in a sorrowful and gloomy atmosphere. Sonny. Smith rushed in with large strides and kept muttering softly. He vaguely felt the warmth that the blonde girl had once given him, as though it was yesterday. He believed that he had found a clue, hee. Stimulated by the spirituality, the unconscious Joseph's eyes moved as he slowly woke up. He heard Sonny again and again and felt the signs of the spiritual object's radiance going out of control. I've been discovered, he said wistfully. Why? Why? Smith turned around abruptly and rushed to Joseph's side. He shouted, "Why did you kill Sonny?" Sonny? Joseph clearly didn't remember who Sonny was. Perhaps he never knew the names of those innocent girls. After a short pause, he smiled without any hint of remorse. Because they are pure and holy spirits. Cole held the bright red gem in his hand, and his pupils reflected a crimson color. He shouted sorrowfully, "Where's her body?" Joseph revealed an intoxicated expression. It was so perverse that it made one's hair stand on end. Part of it became a spiritual object. The rest merged with me. Wretch. Lu Cheng, who understood the meaning behind his words, almost spat out the coffee he had just drunk. Demon, you're a demon. Cole panted and cursed as he approached Joseph step by step. Poor Sonny. She didn't do anything. Because of this, she was innocently murdered. She didn't even know the murderer's reason. She must have been confused, puzzled, and confused at that time. Joseph ignored Cole and Smith's reactions. He struggled to look at the delivery boy who had defeated him. However, all he could see was his pants, clothes, black-rimmed glasses, and baseball cap. He was 176 to 178 meters tall. His body was covered by clothes, and his skin was covered with ice crystals. He couldn't tell which race he was from, but his spirit was very, very strong. Are you the new superhero? Joseph asked in a hoarse voice as he rolled his blue eyes. He wanted to know why Lu Cheng interfered and why he was attacked. No, Lu Cheng answered with simple words. Well, I can't reveal that I was here to eliminate the source of the threat to Ku. That would alert Smith and the rest of them to my weakness. Joseph killed women for the pure and holy spirit. He didn't limit his targets to younger girls. He might have targeted Ku, who had the talent for meditation. Then you're doing this for justice. The bane of criminals? Joseph sneered. Not really, Lu Cheng answered frankly. Joseph was stunned for a moment. He blurted out, then why are you here? Why are you targeting me? Lu Cheng thought for a moment. He lowered the brim of his baseball cap and said, I have nothing better to do. Theoretically speaking, I do have too much free time. That's why I have the time to indulge in whimsical thoughts. Coincidentally, I've always been good at taking action, nothing better to do. Joseph was stunned. He didn't expect this at all. Just because I have too much free time, I'm being targeted? Fuck. Shit. What kind of stupid reason is this? The anger in his heart turned into flames. He couldn't wait to get up and bite Lu Cheng. In that instant, he felt the confusion, doubt, and pain that Sonny and the rest felt when they were innocently killed. In his sorrow, Smith thought that Lu Cheng was merely retaliating verbally against Joseph. Amused, he walked over and took out a metal box the size of a palm. From the box, he took out a syringe, a needle, and a liquid that glowed with a faint golden light. After assembling the syringe, Smith injected the liquid into Joseph's body. He turned to Lu Cheng and smiled. Muscle-slowing agent. It will make him feel weak for an hour. Also, it has serious side effects that will damage his recent memories. If he was in good condition, he might be able to pull through. But now, may God bless him. Not bad. Lu Cheng nodded in satisfaction. Smith stood up, glanced at his watch, and said to Lu Cheng, I'll send you off first. Uncle Cole, watch the scene. Okay. Cole replied in a deep voice, his eyes fixed on Joseph. After Smith and Lu Cheng left the villa, got into the car and drove away, Cole let out a maniacal laugh and slowly approached Joseph. What are you going to do? Joseph, who had been waiting calmly for a lawyer, finally panicked. In the car, Lu Cheng glanced at Smith and sighed. You should be able to guess what happened in the villa. Uncle Cole is determined to pay the price. Smith didn't answer directly. Lu Cheng didn't say anything else and closed his eyes. P.S. Please recommend me. Chapter 504. Near Connecticut University, Smith stopped the car by the roadside and turned to Lu Cheng. I have to go back as soon as possible to settle the remaining matters. Don't worry, there won't be any surveillance footage left behind. Okay. Lu Cheng nodded, unbuckled his seatbelt and got out of the car. He had taken 2 steps when he heard Harding call out, "Hey! Lu!" "What?" Lu Cheng looked back and saw that Smith had already rolled down the car window, leaned over and stuck his head out. His eyes were pained but sincere. His voice was low and slow as he said, "Thank you." Lu Cheng smiled and shook his head. Without saying anything, he turned around and walked towards the school gate that he was used to going in and out of. With the appearance of the butcher and his revenge, Smith could finally vent the pain and suffering that had accumulated over the past 5 years. Lu Cheng had already taken off his black-rimmed glasses and returned to his usual appearance. He went to the supermarket and bought a bottle of water. He was so bored that he first chilled it and then heated it again until Yenjika's lessons were over and she was about to leave school. Throughout this process, he wasn't as bored as he appeared to be. He had been seriously summarizing his experience in the battle with Joseph. Although he had obtained an overwhelming advantage in this battle, chaining his opponent to the point of death, and was unable to unleash the various miraculous and tyrannical aspects of the Jaruga sect, he could look at it from a different perspective. For example, if he were to be ambushed and fall into a passive state, how would he turn the situation around and break out of his predicament? For example, if Joseph were to change his response to a certain choice, would it have been better for him? If that was the case, how should he continue to exert sufficient pressure? A lost battle required contemplation, but so did a victorious battle. And this was the first battle after Lu Cheng's breakthrough with the ice mirror. With it as the core of the battle, there was still much to be summarized. Holding a bottle of mineral water with ice cubes floating in his hand, Lu Cheng stood at the school gate of Connecticut University, waiting for Ku and Aunt Du to come out. At this moment, Huang Shiwen, with her chubby cheeks and gorgeous face, was chatting and laughing with a few girls she was close with as they rushed towards the school gate. They were going to have a wild party tonight. As her gaze wandered, Huang Shiwen suddenly saw a familiar figure and couldn't help but tremble. He was the man of the hour in Songqing University. The news of him and Lin Ke winning the national championship was still a hot topic in the school forum. More importantly, he was Yenjika's boyfriend. Lu Cheng. Why is he here? Huang Shiwen looked at the well-defined, masculine face with a hint of gentleness. While waiting for Aunt Du to prepare dinner, she dragged the worrisome Cheng upstairs and sat on the edge of the bed. She coughed lightly, pursed her lips and deliberately kept a straight face. "Tell me, what bad things did you do in the afternoon?" Her eyes were bright and full of curiosity. "Cough, I went to catch a psychopathic murderer." Lu Cheng summarized the main point. Psychopathic murderer? Yenjika's clear eyes widened. They were filled with confusion and doubt. All the guesses she made in the afternoon had come to nothing. You should have heard of Butcher, right?" Lu Cheng asked. "He was a notorious criminal in Kingstown." "Yes, I've heard of him." Empress Dowager even summarized a few key areas where Butcher committed his crimes. "She told me not to go there for no reason. It's better to be safe than sorry." "You caught him? Do you know who he is?" Yenjika couldn't keep a straight face anymore. She was like a little girl who wanted to hear a story. Lu Cheng walked to the girl's side and sat down. He nodded and said, "It's Joseph, a senior martial artist from the Jaruga sect." "Didn't I sign up for the advanced course?" "When I was communicating with the gem to awaken my own spirit, I sensed the hidden bloodthirst of the grinder, which is Joseph. Originally, I didn't have any other evidence. If I went to him directly, I would easily become a criminal and be deported. That's why I didn't want to do it at first. Later, the head of the Secret Service, Smith, who was in charge of monitoring me, contacted me. His girlfriend, Sunny, was a victim of the Butcher." Without waiting for Lu Cheng to finish, Yenjika was stunned. She changed her position and blurted out, there's a secret service monitoring you? Is there really a surveillance system? That's right, we'll also monitor when experts from other countries enter the country. Which do you want me to talk about first? Secret Service or Butcher? Lu Cheng was amused. Both. Yenjika had already let down her hair and removed her glasses. Her eyes were bright and clear. After answering, she suddenly let out an "Aya" and blurted out in relief, "Thank goodness we drew the curtains." Before she could finish, the girl shut her mouth. Her pretty face was as red as a peach, making Lu Cheng's heart skip a beat. He cleared his mind and answered firmly, "I've seen their surveillance footage. It only covers my activities outside. If Smith dares to peep, I'll let him know what it means to lose his memory from a beating." Seeing that Yenjika didn't want to talk about this topic, Lu Cheng changed the topic and described the general situation. "Although Joseph is similar to an inhuman, I've improved recently. Moreover, it was a surprise attack, so subduing him was a sure thing. What I'm most worried about is actually the problem of cleaning up. I'm afraid that exposing my identity will bring you trouble. This is also why I didn't want to do it at first. However, with Smith around, it won't be a problem. As for Uncle Cole, he will definitely turn himself in. However, he doesn't know who I am and doesn't know me. Even if the Jaruga sect finds a corresponding superpower user, they won't be able to trace it back to me." Listening to Lu Cheng's tireless narration, she thought of the girls who were harmed by the demon Butcher, the pain that Cole and Smith had to endure, and the determination of that father who was willing to pay the price. Yenjika had mixed feelings. Her eyes reddened, filled with resentment and sympathy. Those poor innocent girls. That perverted criminal with no remorse. She suddenly reached out and patted Lu Cheng's shoulder. Biting her lip, she nodded seriously. "Cheng, you've done a great job. One of the main goals of my dream of practicing martial arts is to be a chivalrous and righteous swordsman. You fulfilled all my expectations in this regard." As she spoke, her voice gradually softened. However, she couldn't help but remind him at the end, "If the bad guy is stronger than you, just leave him alone for now." "I'm not stupid." Lu Cheng laughed. Then, he corrected the girl's perception of him. "Actually, I didn't look for Joseph because I hate evil and want to be a chivalrous person. This is only a small part of the reason." "Then what is it?" Yenjika blinked blankly. She couldn't think of a second reason. Lu Cheng cleared his throat and said smugly, "Joseph's target is Joseph. Joseph's target is a girl with a pure and holy spirit. Although the possibility isn't high, I'm still afraid that he'll set his sights on you one day. Therefore, we have to take precautions and eliminate this hidden danger." He described the Connecticut criminal cleanup plan that he came up with blindly. Yenjika was stunned at first. Then, she gradually calmed down. She pursed her lips and stared at Lu Cheng with rippling eyes. When Lu Cheng finished, she moved her arms and said in amusement, "You're really." She couldn't come up with a reason. She pretended to be wronged and looked at Lu Cheng with bright eyes. She bit her lower lip and said, "I've been impure for a long time. I've been tainted by you." "Huh, it's normal for married girls to be tainted." Lu Cheng laughed softly. Yenjika narrowed her eyes and picked up her phone. She leaned into her husband's arms and said, "Let me check if there are any reports." 10 seconds later, she saw the news. She acted as a human translator and said, "The butcher that has plagued Connecticut for a decade has finally shown himself. A victim's father is a new superhero, Deliver a Man. Deliver a Man. Deliver a Man." "Huh," Yenjika burst out laughing and stopped reading. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He was very dissatisfied with his superhero nickname. Yes, very dissatisfied. It's not cool at all. P.S. There are too many people on the list this week. I can't even get into the top 15. Chapter 505. After laughing for a while, Yenjika raised her head and looked at the dissatisfied Lu Cheng. She deliberately frowned and said, I remember you said you would be my personal delivery boy. Didn't you say you would only deliver food to me? You liar. As she spoke, the corners of her mouth curled up again, unable to keep a straight face. Lu Qing reached out and held the girl's waist. He cleared his throat and laughed. I didn't deliver takeout to Joseph. Don't tell me I should tell him, sir, your severe warning has arrived, your Emperor Yen force has arrived, and the DF-21 you ordered has been launched. Cheng, I realize you're getting better at talking. Tell me, did you learn bad things from Talker? Yen Jika laughed and leaned comfortably in Lu Cheng's arms. She picked up her phone and read the rest of the news. When the police arrived, the living room of the villa was covered in blood. Joseph's body, she couldn't continue reading. She felt her appetite disappear instantly. Lu Qing lowered his head and saw the few lines of words with his strong eyesight. Cole vented his pain and hatred to his heart's content. He drained Joseph's blood and dismembered his body. He even tried to chop it up and burn it, destroying everything beyond recognition. Lu Qing sighed and clicked his tongue as he watched. At the same time, he was even more certain of the subsequent developments. If that was the case, the coroner probably wouldn't be able to discover that Joseph had been frozen. Pure explosions and flames were mostly controlled by experts. Cole also completely destroyed the villa's surveillance system. The experts couldn't recover the damage. Yen Jika skipped the first part of the news and translated the following description. Cole truthfully confessed his crimes, but didn't mention the deliverman. Even if the relevant personnel used superpowers to induce him, they couldn't find anything. We can make an outline of the deliverman. He's good at computers and is a very good hacker. He can hack into the police system and cut off the connection between the alarm system and the police station. He's very good at fighting and is stronger than the veteran martial artist Joseph. He has the superpower to create explosions. He likes to dress up as a delivery boy. After reading, Yen Jika pursed her lips and looked at Lu Qing. She nodded seriously and said, based on what they listed, even your wife wouldn't recognize you. They're thinking too much. Lu Qing shook his head, amused. That's for the best. As a person with a big heart, he had already forgotten that unimpressive nickname. At this time, Du Yen finished preparing dinner and urged them to go downstairs. Affected by the news, Yen Jika only ate a little, while Lu Qing ate a lot to make up for his previous consumption. After dinner, the girl turned on her computer and busied herself with reports. Lu Qing took the menu, lit the table lamp, and sat beside her. Sometimes he would study cooking, sometimes he would look up news, sometimes he would watch videos of the Jaruga sect, and sometimes he would turn his head to admire the girl's soft and beautiful side profile. Your report looks quite complicated. After a few glances, he sighed. Fortunately, there's no rush. I'll hand it in next week. Right now, I'm just doing a simple preliminary research to facilitate tomorrow's group discussion. Yen Jika tucked her hair behind her ear, picked up the cup, and took a sip. She unlocked the screen of her phone and looked at the discussions in several groups. She blurted out, the girl who fainted just now is Huang Shiwen. Huang Shiwen? How come she fainted? Lu Qing had heard of this name before. He knew that she was a classmate of his little fairy and was in the same training program. She was good at socializing and often invited his wife to parties, which annoyed her since she didn't like such occasions. She turned from tactful evasions to outright rejections. Yen Jika looked at her husband suspiciously. Seeing that he was sincere and didn't seem to be faking it, she shook her head and answered, I don't know. Maybe it's because she has to play and study at the same time. She often stays up late and her health is deteriorating. Huang Shiwen fainted the moment Qing showed up. Could it be that he secretly used a secret technique to help me vent my anger? No, I didn't say anything bad about Huang Shiwen to him. At most, I just complained that he was too warm and friendly. I couldn't stand it. Maybe Huang Shiwen had a guilty conscience and fainted after seeing Qing. While thinking, Yen Jika made a guess and felt inexplicably good. This is good. I didn't cause any trouble and I feel like I've vented my anger. Because there weren't many tasks, she was quite relaxed. From time to time, she would chat with Lu Cheng and chat about other topics. When Lu Cheng saw interesting news or videos, he would also share them with her for fun. This kind of learning scene was very warm and comfortable. The only problem was that the efficiency was too low. Yenjika didn't finish collecting the simple information until it was close to 9 o'clock. It's all your fault. She looked at the time and kicked Lu Cheng lightly with her slipper-clad foot. You made me lose focus. Is this called a fatale? Lu Cheng laughed and made fun of himself. After flirting for a while, Yenjika suddenly heard her stomach growling. She looked up and said in an aggrieved tone, Cheng, I'm hungry. As the exclusive delivery boy, it's time for you to show off. I didn't eat much for dinner because of that news. I promised to complete the task. Lu Cheng took out his phone and searched for a nearby 24-hour restaurant. There weren't many restaurants in Connecticut. Only a few were open after 9 o'clock. Seeing that he was searching carefully, Yenjika's dimples appeared. She suggested excitedly, do you want me to go with you? I haven't eaten supper since I came here. Okay, I'll drive. You have a driver's license here? Lu Cheng blurted out in surprise. Of course, it's not hard to get a driver's license here. I followed Aunt Du in August and passed the test. Awesome, right? Yenjika raised her chin proudly. I admire you the most. Lu Cheng praised exaggeratedly. While they were in high spirits, the couple took the keys and drove out. They went straight to a 24-hour restaurant that Yenjika had heard about for a long time. It was famous for its local specialty pies. The night was hazy and the wind was blowing. It was quiet all around. The north of Connecticut was not as lively as the big cities. As the car sped up, Lu Cheng had to remind Ku to stay steady and not step on the accelerator. After a while, a figure appeared at the intersection in front of them. He was wearing a black cloak and was dressed strangely. He was waving his arms to stop the car. What's going on? With her husband beside her, Yenjika was very brave. She stopped the car after muttering a few words and looked over in confusion. The cloaked man opened his mouth and spat out a string of words with some slang. Lu Cheng was stunned. He only understood that the cloaked man was trying to say that there was danger ahead. When he communicated with Smith, he knew that Lu Cheng was an outsider, so he would slow down and reduce his slang and non-standard grammar. What did he say? Lu Cheng asked in a low voice. He said that the Black Forest area ahead is the slums. The security there is very bad. Robberies are common. Try not to go there during the day. It's more dangerous at night. He suggested that we take a detour. Yenjika translated dutifully and expressed her opinion. Although the surveillance network in America is very mature, due to various reasons, it's only limited to certain streets. For example, in the lower levels of the city, most of the devices are broken, and most of them are in disrepair. After pausing for a second, she glanced at Lu Cheng and whispered, I have the superhero, the deliverman, to protect me. I'm not afraid of bad security. After that, the couple looked at each other and smiled. They waved at the cloaked man outside. Thank you. Then, Yenjika turned on the turn signal and drove to another road. I can't let their good intentions go to waste. The cloaked man nodded in satisfaction as he watched them drive away. He felt a sense of accomplishment. Oh yeah, why is he waiting there to remind people? Lu Cheng muttered after a few seconds. Yenjika said with a smile, he said that he was a superhero. Although he was not strong and was not recognized by everyone, he always wanted to do something good within his power. Seeing that many people unknowingly entered the Black Forest area at night and suffered losses and even injuries, he stopped cars here every day to remind them. Lu Cheng was touched by her words. He sighed with peace of mind. I think this superhero culture in the United States is quite interesting. Every country has its own unique characteristics. Yeah. Yenjika nodded in agreement. Then, she frowned in confusion. But he's wearing a black cloak to stop cars. Other than people like us, who would dare to stop at night. No wonder he said it wasn't effective, that makes sense. Lu Cheng was stunned. Yenjika left in high spirits and returned home when it was 9:40 p.m. After a hearty meal, Yenjika returned home. Shower and sleep. The girl rested for a while, grabbed her pajamas and change of clothes, and walked to the door. Before she left, she looked back at Lu Cheng warily. Seeing that he didn't intend to follow her, she walked into the bathroom. Seriously, am I that perverted? Lu Cheng laughed and shook his head. After a while, the sound of running water stopped. Yenjika came back with a towel wrapped around her head. Her nightdress tonight was slightly different from usual. It was a spaghetti strap style, revealing her delicate collarbones, beautiful shoulders, and fair skin. Lu Cheng was stunned when he saw it. I always wear this. I was too embarrassed to wear it in front of you before. Humph, you said that I'm a married girl. What's there to be afraid of? Yenjika forced herself to explain. Her cheeks were flushed because she had just taken a bath. It looks good. Lu Cheng didn't answer her question. He walked over and volunteered, I'll help you dry your hair. Okay. Yenjika sat down, took off the wet towel, and let Lu Cheng dry her hair. Smelling the fragrance and lowering his head, he saw the breathtaking beauty. Droplets of water slid down her slender white neck and stopped at her delicate collarbone. Lu Cheng couldn't hold himself back no matter how hard he tried. When her hair was only half dry, he kissed her. The girl moaned and softened in his arms. The room was full of romantic scenes. Going to bed on time became an extravagant hope. After a while, Lu Cheng lay down with satisfaction and hugged Yenjika's trembling body. Applying what I've learned is pretty good, he thought with a smile. Yenjika paused for a few seconds, gritted her teeth, and wrote 3 words on Lu Cheng's chest. Big, pervert. With Lu Cheng's control of his body, he could easily recognize it. He read it out with a smile. Yenjika rolled her eyes at him and started writing again. Big hooligan. Lu Cheng read it out proudly. Yenjika pursed her lips and moved her fingers again to write. Big idiot. Big idiot. Big hero, huh? Lu Cheng read them one by one and turned his head to look at the girl. He found that Yenjika had already turned her head and looked to the side. In a dark corner of the street, Smith, who was on night shift, received a call from his superior. Any unusual movements from the target? Did he leave the surveillance? Asked the other side in a deep voice. Joseph was defeated by a new superhero. Every dangerous person in Connecticut was a suspect and had to be questioned. Smith answered without blushing or panting, no, he's very obedient. Very good. The superior didn't say anything else because he didn't think that Lou was suspicious. According to the available information, this dangerous person was no different from Joseph. The next morning, Lu Cheng continued his training. After everything was done, he sent the girl to school and jogged to the Immerse martial arts gym. He planned to participate in the class as if nothing had happened. $5,000 can't be wasted. I'll go to the Dragon Punch dojo in the afternoon to see the legendary Zhu something. Chapter 506. On a Wednesday morning, the wind in Connecticut was mild and pleasant. Lu Cheng jogged through the streets, occasionally looking up at the web-like surveillance cameras. He knew that Smith and the other agents were monitoring him. However, he could detect the devices and whether the cameras were aimed at him, but he couldn't determine whether they were aimed at him or not. It was even more impossible for him to detect where Smith and the rest were hiding. This was the difference between martial arts and modern technology. Nothing in this world is omnipotent. Too bad I wanted to knock on their car window and say hello to give them a scare. Lu Cheng couldn't help but think mischievously. On the next street, Smith, who had changed his car, was drinking coffee and munching on a burger. Beside him, his subordinate was focused on the surveillance screen. After watching for a while, a young man with thin, blonde hair smiled casually. "Boss, the target looked at the famous criminals and cases in Connecticut yesterday afternoon. The butcher was taken down in the afternoon. If you hadn't been keeping an eye on him, I would have suspected that he was the deliverman. He went to challenge Joseph and let Cole take advantage of him. He had wanted to imitate Smith's use of cut and spar, but he couldn't remember the weird pronunciation." Smith calmly finished the rest of his coffee and replied with a smile. "From the data of the target in the past month, he might be able to defeat Joseph, but he won't be able to subdue him. He won't even be able to cause significant damage to him." "I think so too." The young man stroked his thin hair and muttered casually, "I heard that there's a powerful hair tonic in China." Smith took the opportunity to change the topic. He didn't look guilty at all. He had hacked into a company last night and optimized the search results. When searching for information about the victim, Sunny, her boyfriend was placed at the very end of the search results. The corresponding photo was also altered and deleted. It had been 5 years, and most people's memories of this had faded. It was difficult for them to remember such an insignificant figure in the case. As long as the relationship between Smith and Sunny wasn't discovered, there wouldn't be any problems. "The things I've worked hard to learn over the past 5 years have finally come in handy." Smith crumpled the food packaging into a ball, rolled down the car window, and threw it from afar, accurately sending it into the trash can. The entire process was escorted by a thread. The moment Lu Cheng stepped into the saucy martial arts gym, he could feel a stifling atmosphere. The instructors and students walking in and out of the gym either kept a straight face, remained silent, or whispered in each other's ears. After a few steps, just as he was about to turn the corner, he suddenly saw Olsen, the 2-meter-tall giant that he had met the day before. Olsen was approaching him. His skin was so dark that it was shiny. His scalp was smooth without any hair. His expression was solemn and dignified. "Hey, little boy, I heard that your fighting skills are pretty good?" Olsen suddenly opened his mouth, revealing 2 rows of white teeth. His smile was not forced at all. Before Lu Cheng could answer, another coach passed by. Olsen instantly shut his mouth and put on a solemn and sorrowful expression. "That's the legendary face-changing special skill. Looks like I'm not on good terms with Joseph." Lu Cheng shook his head in amusement as he watched Olsen brush past him. He picked up his phone and shared the news with Ku. Immediately after, he turned into the exclusive training ground and saw the red-eyed girl, Othaway, and the other students. There was no doubt that Cole had not come. After the few of them greeted each other, a Caucasian student rushed over. He asked in shock and doubt, "What happened? Why is there a demonstration outside and blocking the main entrance?" "Jack, didn't you watch the news?" Othaway blurted out in shock. "So, did I miss something?" Jack spread his hands blankly. "I was at a party last night and partied till midnight. I came here after waking up. Mr. Joseph, no, Johnny Joseph has been proven to be the butcher. He died because of Cole's revenge." Another male student explained quickly. Lu Cheng almost didn't understand. Luckily, he could guess what the other person was trying to say. That was why he could barely make sense of it. Jack's mouth was wide open. After a while, he scratched his head and said, "Are you kidding me? How could Mr. Joseph be the butcher? Even if he was, Cole, 10 Coles wouldn't be able to kill him. That's because there's a new superhero, the Deliverman, helping him," Othaway answered with fear and respect. Who would have thought that the usually dignified and powerful martial artist Joseph was actually the devil hiding around us? Luckily, we didn't have much contact with him. Luckily, the Deliverman upheld justice and exposed the butcher's mask. Really? Jack took out his phone and browsed the news. After a few minutes, he exclaimed and burst out with a series of words. Lu Cheng was stunned. "Oh, my God. Is this real? So cool." After expressing his emotions intensely, Jack pointed outside and said, "So, that's a protest against Joseph?" "No, they're calling for a boycott of the Jaruga sect. It's organized by the mission. They say that all things have spirit is the path of the devil and will make people degenerate like Joseph." Hathaway said worriedly. She was worried that the Msasi martial arts arena would be affected. "We're not the weird guys from the Kagri sect. Our focus is on fighting." The Jaruga sect is covered in dirty water. They can't even take care of themselves." "I'm relieved." Lu Qing smiled as he listened. The conflict between the mission sect and the nature sect runs deep. Will the Jaruga sect suspect that the Deliverman is the mission's doing? If that's the case, the Jaruga sect and the Msasi martial arts arena will have to cut ties with Joseph. At least on the surface, no one will investigate this matter. The few students chatted worriedly for a while. A female coach with short blonde hair came over and said in a deep voice, "Lin Luodong will cooperate with the investigation. I hope he's not involved in any of the butcher's past cases. I'll be in charge of your lessons for the next few days. You can call me Madam Annie." She's calling him the butcher directly? That's a quick cut. Lu Qing sighed to himself. He began practicing his fighting techniques with Annie. During sparring, he controlled his body with the ice mirror and restrained his instinctive moves. He purely used boxing, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu. This gave him a different kind of experience. He looked back at his instinctive reactions during combat and improved himself from the details. Although she had some concerns, Annie had already awakened her own spirit. Her corresponding spiritual cultivation wasn't weak, so she maintained a calm state throughout. She earnestly completed the awakening teaching and other content, allowing Lu Qing to gain some insights. When the lesson ended, Lu Qing took a shower and changed his clothes. He carried the bag and left the Msasi martial arts arena without looking back. He had lunch with Yen Jika and chatted about the butcher's case in school. After Yen Jika's lesson, he bought a bottle of water and walked leisurely to the Dragon Punch Dojo of China. It was a short distance away and only took him 3 to 5 minutes. After leaving the Msasi martial arts arena, Jack invited Ossel and the other students he was close to his rented apartment for a meal. He specially ordered pizza, chicken wings, cola, and other food. When they gathered together, the topic of conversation was always about the butcher and the deliverman. The more they talked, the more excited they got. They made many guesses and finished criticizing each other. At this moment, the doorbell rang and the sound echoed throughout the living room. "Who is it?" Ossel asked instinctively. Jack stood up and walked to the door. He didn't care and smiled. "The takeout is here." Just as he said the word takeout, it was as though a magical spell had been cast on him. He froze on the spot and the discussions in the room were instantly silenced. "Don't tell me it's really the deliverman?" Jack swallowed his saliva and forced a smile. As he spoke, he carefully opened the door and made many confirmations. After a long mental journey, he finally got the pizza, chicken wings, and other food. Just an ordinary delivery guy, Jack turned around and shrugged. Everyone was relieved at first, then disappointed. Similar scenes were happening in many places in Connecticut. Especially the children, they were filled with fantasies. After Lu Qing arrived at the Dragon Punch Dojo of China, he waited at the front desk and saw the skinny young man, Li Zuanping. "Is Dojo Master Zhu here?" he asked excitedly. Li Zuanping was all smiles. "He's here. He's doing a demonstration. If you were an hour later, he would have left." That's good, that's good." Lu Qing nodded with a smile. He followed Li Zuanping into the training grounds and saw layers and layers of people in front of him. There were white, black, yellow, and brown people. Watch carefully. If you sign up, there will be many more opportunities like this. Li Zuanping extended his hand from behind and tried to pat Lu Qing on the shoulder. However, Lu Qing happened to take a step diagonally, causing his hand to miss. At this moment, Lu Qing pulled his fascia and shook his muscles. Anyone who came into contact with him felt as though they had touched a loach. They slid half a step away without realizing it, allowing him to easily squeeze to the front. In the middle of the training grounds, a Chinese man in his 50s was slowly practicing the routine. His punches and kicks were natural and seemed to have some foundation. Of course, this foundation was only relative. Lu Cheng was stunned. He couldn't believe that this was the legendary dojo master Zhu. Very average. Zhu Hong's hair had turned a little white, showing the vicissitudes of life. He was quite good-looking and had the temperament of a grandmaster. After practicing for a while, he settled his feet and got into a stance. 6 students came out to push him. Before Lu Cheng could react, 4 muscular men had already entered the training grounds. There were white and black people. Then, 2 excited students joined the team. They lined up in a row as though they were participating in a tug-of-war competition. The latter pushed the former, and in the end, they pushed Zhu Hong's palms. Yaya. The 6 men used all their strength but still couldn't push the skinny dojo master. This attracted the excited cheers of the other students. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, was at a loss with his mouth half open. From the changes in his waist, abdomen, and legs, only the 2 at the end had exerted their strength. Not only did the other 4 not help, but they even slowed him down and offset his strength. Are they King liars? The corner of Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. Chapter 507. After watching for a while, Lu Cheng was both annoyed and amused. He wasn't in the mood to waste any more time. If one were to say that Gym Master Zhu was a complete liar, that wouldn't be the case. He obviously had a decent foundation in martial arts. Back in the day, he was probably only a piece of paper away from the Danchi realm. However, due to his advancing age, he no longer had any hope of making a breakthrough. Although the dragon fist he created couldn't be said to be stunning, it was still a combination of techniques from several countries. It was simple and powerful, and was suitable for beginners. Given his situation, it wouldn't be difficult for him to set up a martial arts dojo in Chinatown near Connecticut University to earn some retirement money. However, if he wanted to make a name for himself, set up a signboard, set up a chain, and earn a huge sum of money, that would be beyond his reach. He could only rely on trickery to make up for his lack of martial arts. He could only rely on exaggerated performances to win over those who shared the same roots or the local masses, who yearned for the mysterious martial arts of China. From a practical point of view, Dojo Master Zhu was a great success, gaining both fame and fortune. On one hand, it was because he was very rational and clear-headed. He never had any conflicts with the local tyrants like the Jaruga sect, nor did he try to snatch their resources. He only took in those who were eliminated. On the other hand, normal challengers couldn't do anything to him. Moreover, there were also strong and sturdy disciples who had received the true teachings to take care of him. On the other hand, whether one could master martial arts or not depended on one's master. Even if a student failed, there would be plenty of reasons to explain it. No one would find fault because of this. Just like the Msasi martial arts gym, there were also a large number of failures. Gently shaking his head, Lu Cheng seized the opportunity when the performing student's center of gravity changed when the crowd's cheers reached its climax. He drew in his chi and blood and channeled it into his left leg, causing it to swell and thicken. Lu Cheng stomped on the ground and flipped forward. Suddenly, the arena shook and trembled. The tall white man standing in front of Zhu Hong lost his balance and fell, leaning towards Dojo Master Zhu like Mount Tai. Zhu Hong's expression changed. He pushed his feet inward, twisted his knees, swung his hips, and braced his arms to withstand the fall. However, the students behind him were like falling dominoes, stacking on top of each other. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. His center of gravity wobbled, and his body leaned backwards. He staggered a few steps back and sat on the ground. Thump. Thump. The 6 students all fell to the ground in a heap, staring at Zhu Hong with their eyes wide open. The surrounding cheers came to an abrupt end. Everyone looked at each other with a blank expression on their faces. What was going on? This is probably what they call a performance accident. Lu Qing chuckled mischievously. While the crowd was panicking, confused, and focused on the interior of the venue, he picked up his phone, took a picture, and retreated. He squeezed out of the human wall, straightened his clothes, and slowly walked away. After a few seconds, everyone came back to their senses. The two Caucasian men in the crowd looked at each other in confusion. George, let's go back to class. The brown-haired young man with a few freckles on his face glanced at Zhu Hong, who hurriedly stood up and said disappointedly. The shaking of the field and the fall of the students were very close together. In hindsight, it was easy to confuse the cause and effect and think that the latter was the cause of the former. The blonde youth with thick arms and a clear devil tattoo sighed and answered, "That's right." Good. Sigh, even in Cathay, there aren't many people as powerful as Peng Helu. Not to mention those who were willing to come to a foreign land. After leaving the Dragon Punch dojo, Lu Qing strolled around the nearby streets aimlessly. He shared the incident with Yan Zhika along with the picture. Poor dojo master Zhu. He must be drawing circles and asking who I offended. He will most likely suspect that it's an old enemy or a competitor from the dojo. He definitely won't think that it's some guy who has nothing better to do, said Yan Zhika. It's hard to say if he'll realize that someone is messing with him. Maybe he'll think that it's a performance accident. Lu Qing put quotation marks around the word performance. I'm thinking. If that so-and-so knew that someone's true motive was to prevent trouble before it happened, and that it wasn't too far away, what kind of expression would he have? At that moment, the conversation between Lu Qing and Joseph appeared in Yan Zhika's mind. This time, Lu Qing didn't say that he had nothing better to do. Instead, he answered frankly, "For my wife's safety, I have to get rid of the hidden danger in advance." What kind of reaction would Joseph have then? If it were me, I'd definitely ask, "Who's your wife?" and get a weird answer of, "You don't know her." After a series of weird conversations like, "Do I have anything to do with her?" and "I don't think so," he'd feel extreme absurdity and endless anger. It should be the expression of someone who died with their eyes wide open. Sinister smile expression, replied Lu Qing. Yan Zhika forced herself to turn her attention back to the classroom. Rest in peace, Mr. Joseph. It's my fault for coming to Connecticut to study after this conversation. Lu Qing thought of his Connecticut criminal cleanup plan again. Hence, he leisurely started to filter out possible targets. Nightmare was stronger than Joseph. He hadn't locked onto a suspect of any value. He couldn't even find out who he was, let alone pay him a visit. Furthermore, his crime area was only in the slums, so he could effectively avoid him. The others were either people that Aunt Du could handle, or they wouldn't involve Ku at all. There were only two that could pose a threat. One was Mizuski, of Polish descent. His skills were only passable. He was the boss of a mafia in Connecticut. He was involved in arms smuggling and large-scale drug trafficking. He worshipped spirit cultivation and liked to use drugs to control girls, lure the innocent, and hold wild parties. In some situations, strength couldn't prevent everything. Mizuski had been caught a few times, but he had taken precautions in advance. He had his capable subordinates take the blame and go to jail. He was still at large. One of them was called Pavel. He was a member of the church and a Grandmaster of martial arts. Due to the fact that he had violated young children and young girls, his current whereabouts were unknown. There were rumors that he was hiding in the famous Holy Top Church in Connecticut. However, in the absence of evidence, no one dared to search for him, even superheroes. Thinking of this, Lu Qing turned on his phone and sent an email to an inconspicuous mailbox. He asked Smith to provide more information for his reference. If there was a good opportunity and there weren't any consequences, he could try. If not, he wouldn't think about it for now. The butcher incident was at the cusp of a storm. It was better to avoid it for a while. Smith opened the door and got out of the car. He stretched his limbs and walked to the cafe. Just then, he received a notification. He took out his phone and logged into an email that didn't belong to him. He saw Lu Cheng's email. After browsing through it, he covered his face with his hands. Is there an end to this? However, if this happened a few more times, everyone's attention would be diverted from the butcher case to the follow-up. That would completely bury the possibility of me being related to the deliverman. But I can't do too much, or I'll be exposed sooner or later. P.S. I'm stuck at the end of this chapter. I didn't finish it for a long time. Seeing that there wasn't enough time, I wrote down the parts one thought of. That's why the word count is lower. I can't postpone it to tonight. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.